We have football tonight. I will admit that it is probably going to be the worst game of the year. At least I am not excited about this in the slightest between the Denver Broncos and the New Orleans Saints. But nonetheless, we'll talk about all the news that's happened today so far. We'll answer some questions in the live chat as well. Moving this over, we are going to be looking at first, Dallas Goedert does not practice again on Thursday. Wrong button there. But anyway, this doesn't really surprise too many people here. I mean, at least personally, I am not expecting that Dallas Goedert will be a player that you can rely upon. Rachaad White is limited on Thursday. This will be something to monitor, probably a three-man committee in Tampa. Not super excited. Jones, Hawkinson both get in limited practices. Surprised to see this with Jones. I honestly thought he would be missing. And Davante Adams somehow, some way comes back from the depths where you thought he was never going to be healthy. But, I guess maybe the hamstring injury was fake all along. He's at practice on Thursday. I'd assume Adams is going to play this week. Mike Williams is going to end up getting traded here. Shaheed underwent season-ending meniscus repair. So you have no more Shaheed. I know some people want to pick up Bub Means. Drake May will be practicing again on Thursday. Sounds like he's good to go. You have no Ramondre Stevenson on Thursday. Looks like it's an Antonio Gibson game. Brian Robinson does get in a limited practice. He practiced yesterday as well. Brian Robinson should play. Ladd McConkey gets in a limited practice. I'd imagine he does play. You have no Quentin Johnston this week. Achane will be good to go. Like we said, Shaheed out for the season. Taylor does not practice. Singletary does. Neighbors should be good to go. James Cook should be good to go. Deontay Johnson doesn't, but who cares? Deontay Johnson has been missing practice consistently and still showing up on Sunday. Jonathan Brooks does not practice. You all know Brooks this week. Start Chuba Hubbard. And then in Tampa, they're going to be riding with the hot hand. Sounds like it'll be a three-man running back by committee. Not super excited to go through and start any of these players this week until we get confirmation on what it's going to look like. Evans didn't practice, but should be good to go. Harrison actually got into practice, which is very interesting. And then Nick Chubb, still a work in progress. We want to make sure that he's available for the long term. So if you are desperate, you can start Chubb. I personally probably not really planning on it. But let me answer some of the free questions that we have in the live chat. And of course, as we get additional news here, I will go through and I will begin to update y'all and update the rankings that we have on the site as well. But anyway, if you have any questions in the chat, let me know. I'll be happy to try to get to as many as I possibly can here. Now, our first one that we are going to be looking at will be from Rin. Says Bub Means is my start of the week. Personally, I would not recommend this. Where if you are looking at Bub, I understand you have no Olave, you also have no Shaheed, but at the same time, this is a situation in which you are looking at, sadly, Spencer Rattler being the starting quarterback here in New Orleans. So with that in mind, this should be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. You have no Surtain, so maybe Denver is a little bit disappointing, but still. Now, Izza Rooney says, where do you rank Harrison? In terms of where we rank Harrison for this week, it's extremely difficult knowing that at least my initial idea was he was going to be missing with the concussion. It is a super late game on Monday night, so it's almost impossible to rank him. As of now, I would still operate under the assumption that he is going to be missing, but obviously we should get more information on Friday as well as Saturday, and hopefully we'll know if you can trust him before the Sunday games. Bubs or Juju with the hamstring. I would go Juju if he was healthy, but obviously it is a little bit tougher if you think that there's a chance that Juju does miss time here. But you know what? We definitely need to get to a bunch of the questions that we have on the site. So let's go ahead and let's pull these up. First question coming out from Abomination says, last year you told me there were 42 million reasons why the Colts played Jonathan Taylor over Zach Moss. This year I told someone why Love will be played over Malik Willis. 250 million reasons. I guess I needed to explain more what I meant. Completely understand. And this is why Ayuk will continue to play over Juwan Jennings, right? You got 120 million reasons why Brandon Ayuk will be the guy over Jennings. But let's move this over to a trade question that we have from Clave. says, try to include Ladd as number one of the receivers, but sounds like I'll have to include T and Smith. Do we still do it? Here, Baker to Jake Ferguson, kind of up to you and your team needs. Going from Smith to Cooper Kupp is a massive upgrade. Paying T. Higgins to get it done. I mean, going through and looking at what we would have at wide receiver after this trade, we'd be sitting with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, and Cooper Kupp. And this is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. So I would definitely prefer selling Ladd over one of the wide receivers, as you mentioned previously. But with this being a 10-team league where you start 2 receivers in a flex and the depth doesn't really matter here, I actually think we would go ahead and we would take the Cooper Kupp side, specifically for your team, as well as for what you have with your league settings. But let's move this over to our next question. This is coming out from a longtime member of the flock, and Jordan says, drop anyone on my bench like Juju, Bigsby, Javante for Rome Odunze. I personally think you can wait until what we see tonight in this game. But if Javante disappoints, I think you can go ahead and drop Javante for Rome relatively easily. Pickens the ladder, my wide receiver 3 and 4. I think Rome has a ton of upside here rest of season, especially with the Chicago Bears having a little bit of a tougher schedule where maybe they're not able to run the ball as consistently as what we've seen over the past few weeks. So yeah, I actually really like the idea of going through and throwing Rome on the bottom of your bench if he's free. But Zachary Jonas says, Waddle's on the waiver wire. Drop Terry, Brian Thomas Jr., Ayuk, Marv, or DJ for him, or leave him on waivers. It's a 5 wide receiver max league. It sucks that this is a 5 wide receiver max league. I would love to pick up Jalen Waddle. I hate these league settings, to be honest with you. I think you should be able to roster as many receivers as you want. But honestly, there's no way in hell I can go through and drop somebody like Terry McLaurin or Marvin Harrison Jr. for Jalen Waddle at this point. I think you're rolling as is. Now, our next question coming out from Zay. He says, we need running backs. Thing in Mason won't be much more once CMC is back in. So obviously, once Tua is back in, Tyreek Hill will go back to being a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy yet again. Jordan Mason's an RB1 in the short term. Obviously, in the long term, I agree with you. I don't think that you will have anything once McCaffrey is back in this lineup. It does seem like you are paying a pretty large price to get this deal done, just because I personally am expecting that Tua does come back a couple weeks from now. Going down to what we have with the other options we could possibly trade away. Like if you could instead trade away Jaden Reed, I think it'd make a ton of sense. If instead you could trade away, say, Nico Collins, I think it could make a ton of sense. Like if you could do those deals for Barkley, it's a no-brainer. The Tyreek one really comes down to what your personal expectations are with Tua. And if you think Tua doesn't come back, then yeah, you can do it. Jalopy Sausage says, first week, I'm not sure who to start. Mostly at running back 2 in a flex. Thank you. Thank you. So it sounds like Jordan Mason's probably going to be good to go this week. But James Cook will be as well. So, I mean, this is a really tough spot. I actually would start James Cook over Tony Pollard. The spread on this game's 8-9 points. James Cook did get in a full practice. And remember, we thought he would have been good to go last Monday. Sadly, he was not. But nonetheless, looking at Jordan Mason here at running back, sounds like he will be a solid option. And then Brian Robinson as well. It sucks that we have to bench Tony Pollard here. Obviously, if Brian Robinson or if, say, Jordan Mason or James Cook, if any of these guys miss, you play Tony Pollard. The issue is currently sportsbooks are projecting out the Tennessee Titans to be the worst offense in the NFL this week with an implied team total of only 16.5 points. So I do think you honestly have to go with the other options instead. Now, Lloyd Xmas, love the username, my friend. I will say Dumb and Dumber, it was my family's movie growing up. I mean, the most quotable movie you could possibly have. But I'd like to see the review in a video. Yes, sir. Here we are right now. Also, I'm 2 and 4. I need wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end. Feels weak. I just traded away CMC for Kyron Williams and a first. So we feel good about that. I'm operating under the assumption that CMC is just done. Okay, so this is a Dynasty 1 quarterback start 8 format. So it is a Dynasty league in which the depth doesn't matter here nearly as much as a typical Dynasty league would. And we are currently sitting at 2 and 4. So if we are 2 and 4, you would naturally assume, oh, okay, this is a team that more likely than not should be going through and we should be looking to try to build for the long term. Maybe we go ahead and maybe we look for 2025, 2026 value. So I will say in general, I would rather have Kyron Williams straight up over McCaffrey, both in a redraft and a dynasty league. So the fact that you were able to pivot from CMC to Kyren Williams in a dynasty league and get a first round pick at the same time, it's an absolute no-brainer. Your league mate should feel embarrassed that they gave this to you. And honestly, it puts us in a much, much better situation going into the future. Now, at the same time, I'm sitting here going, we're 2-4, but the team with the running back production that we have, honestly, is probably in a spot in which we're not ready to burn this down. We're not ready to think about rebuilding anytime soon. Because at quarterback, we have Kirk Cousins. I mean, I need to move Cousins up dramatically in our dynasty rankings. Obviously, on the site, we've been updating our rest of season rankings literally every single day, tinkering around with these every 15 seconds. I'll be honest with you, the dynasty rankings during the year kind of go on the back burner for me, where we're not spending nearly as much time on them. Obviously, dynasty rankings are going to be very, very different than what you have with a typical redraft league. But nonetheless, I need to update them. And of course, if y'all ever wanted to go through and check out any rankings on the site, it is completely free. If you want to just go over and look at the expert average, you can look at Dynasty Superflex, Week 7, Dynasty 1 quarterback, or rest of season ranks. If you wanted to sort by my own ranks, just go hit Mason Dodd down there on the ad creator. That will be behind a paywall though. But I mean, of course, if you ever wanted to go and check out the site, there are other free things that you could do as well. Or if you go over to flockfantasy.com and go to the My Teams page, you can actually link your league if you're playing on Sleeper, ESPN, or Yahoo for completely free and see updated power rankings according to the rankings that we have on the site. You can actually sort these as well, specifically based off your positions, whether that's, you can see, Zach here has the best running back room in the Flock League. He has Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, and Joe Mixon all in the same squad. So definitely do this. You can link it all for free. You can check it out. Super cool tool. You can also see the best available players on the waiver wire. Obviously, with the Shaheed news, it looks like everybody on the site needs to go through and update their Shaheed rankings ASAP. But yeah, all free over there on flockfantasy.com if you were interested. But getting back over to this question, I need to move Kirk Cousins up. And honestly, I think that Kirk Cousins can be a really solid QB going into the future if we are looking at the passing volume that we've actually had in Atlanta and what sportsbooks are projecting out this Atlanta Falcons offense to be doing this week and honestly over the next few. Obviously, I'd be a little more excited about Justin Herbert's long-term value in Dynasty, but Herbert probably won't have the ability to make a difference for us right this second for this team. Going over to what we have at running back, we are currently rolling with Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyren Williams. So two very young running backs, two of the very few players that we can be pretty confident will have that role in 2025 and beyond, while at the same time, you're in a situation that they are going to be able to give you running back one production for this season. And we can go through and look at, say, Jordan Mason, who's going to be able to give you running back one production this season as well. So looking at your running back room, this is a running back room that can compete. This is a running back room that actually can look to win right now. It's a league in which you only have to start up to 4 receivers weekly. So like we said, it's a little bit of a shallower format. So even though we're 2-4, I'm not thinking long-term here. Even though we're 2-4, I'm not pivoting over to 2025. I actually think we still keep on trying to do the best we can to win this season. Going over to what we have at wide receiver, we have Harrison, Drake London as these cornerstone assets that can help us win right now while at the same time giving us long-term value. We have Khalil Shakir, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Jalen Polk, Jerry Jeudy, and Tyler Lockett as decent depth wide receiver options. But obviously, the wide receiver depth's not going to be super important. It looks like we're going to be throwing a running back one of the flex spots every week regardless. And going over to tight end, we have Kyle Pitts, an extremely young tight end option. I mean, hell, he's younger than someone like Zay Flowers. That is a tight end one this season, even if he's maybe a little bit disappointing. Here's still somebody that you can go through and start. And he's young enough to give you long-term upside. So I think this is a phenomenal team here. I think that you are set up really nicely in a dynasty format. I love the additional future first that we have as well. Maybe something that you can consider is if we can go over in a one quarterback format, and if you could potentially just get an extra depth receiver here by trading with a team that's rebuilding. Like this team here that's a 1-5. looking at the wide receivers that they have, I mean, they specifically don't really have anybody that'd be too interesting, but maybe a running back like Aaron Jones for this squad doesn't really do anything. And if we can ship them a second rounder to get Aaron Jones in one of our flex spots and build out our depth with a cheap contending piece like that, I think that would make a lot of sense. My only hesitation is I don't think you want to be rebuilding with this team just yet. So what I would look to do is I would actually look to wait a week, see if we're able to move to 3-4. And if you can move to 3-4, then at that point, I think we actually look to make a trade and bring a veteran because we are so close to contending with such a strong team. However, if we lose and we fall to 2-5, even if we're a really strong team at that point, it probably does make sense where we need to go ahead and we need to start burning it down for the rebuild. Where in that case, what you're going to look to do is we're going to look to go ahead and sell Jordan Mason, sell Christian Kirk, sell Tyler Lockett, pretty much get whatever we can, obviously with the expectation that the guy we'd get the most value from would specifically be Mason. But I really appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out here. And honestly, phenomenal team. And great McCaffrey. The team would have been way worse if you didn't make the McCaffrey trade, but I think the McCaffrey deal really sets you up nicely. But this is one of those free underdog team reviews coming out from Jay Stanley. Going to be excited to check this team out for you, my friend. And real quick, of course, if y'all don't know, you can always ask a question in one of these live streams or even outside of the live stream, because when I answer it in the live stream, it will be sent to you directly through the site. So you can literally ask a question at any time over there on flockfantasy.com. Just go to the expert advice button in the top right corner. There you can get a team review, trade question, start sit question, or a super message, whatever you are wanting. Now, if you wanted that team review, I would highly recommend taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy with the link in the live chat and use promo code FLOCK, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, you're going to be hooked up with a free pick. If you sign up before the game tonight, that'll be a free Bo Nix pick, more than less than half a total yard. If you wait until after the game tonight, it'd be a different player for Sunday. But you'll also get a free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single day. You just need to make sure that you're going through the link that's in the comment section, description, and live chat. Use promo code FLOCK and Underdog, make that $10 deposit, and then set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to go ahead and hook you up with a free team review voucher. But let's move this over to our next question, which is Jamar Alago. We can see immediately that this is the best team in the league, according to the league analyzer. And honestly, there is a pretty big teardrop between the top two teams in this league and the teams that you have at the very bottom. Now, going over to what we have with our squad, it is a league that's only going to give you a half point per reception. And at the same time, you're in a situation in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So the wide receiver depth just simply is not going to matter at all. And you are highly incentivized to build around depth at the running back position for the guys that could potentially slide in and make a strong difference if their situation were to change. Now, starting off at quarterback, we are also highly incentivized to have an elite guy here. And we do have Lamar Jackson, which is perfect. Obviously, we absolutely love to see it. And when we have Lamar, we're not going to need a backup quarterback here either. You're able to just go through, start him every single week, regardless of the matchup he has. So love to see it. Going over to running back, it's a 4-2 roster, so we can afford to wait for the long-term upside that you have with Devon Achane, where Achane should be a running back 1 here in the long term. Going over to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, for me, looks like a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 in the long term. I mean, he is a 3-down back in a really good offense. I don't have much hesitation here. I think you are in a really good spot. We have Jonathan Brooks for maybe some long-term upside. We have Javonte Williams as a depth player that could possibly be interesting if Bo Nix is able to improve as the year goes on. And then we have these premium handcuff backs down here at the bottom end, where with Jalen Ward, if Najee goes down, you can probably start Warren weekly. With Mostert, if Achane goes down, you can probably start him weekly. In games that Rashad White misses, maybe Sean Tucker's viable. We have Trey Sermon and Ty Chandler here as well. So, I mean, in terms of what we are doing at the bottom end of this bench, I actually do really like the fact that we are prioritizing what we have specifically with the running backs. However, with that being said, I think that there are maybe a few interesting names that I would prioritize over a player like Trey Sermon. We've seen Trey Sermon in the games where Jonathan Taylor misses. He is still not viable himself. So what I would potentially look to do is I would actually go ahead. Now, I'd probably cut Trey Sermon, and I think we'd be picking up a player like Trey Benson, where I think Benson's a better player. I think that at the same time, you're looking at a running back that if we get an injury to James Conner, I could view him being a league winner. I could see him going out there and giving you a 3-down workload. So I would cut Sermon, pick up Trey Benson. And then if Aaron Jones is good to go and Aaron Jones is going to play this week, then at that point, I would actually go ahead and I probably would also look to drop Ty Chandler in favor of Blake Corum. Because with Chandler, we've seen the laughable inefficiency. Not only have we seen the inefficiency, but at the same time, you also get confirmation that maybe this team doesn't really want to give him the role, indicated by the fact that they're willing to go out there and trade for Cam Akers. Now, of course, with Aaron Jones currently injured, I'm not going to tell you to cut Ty Chandler right now. But if Jones is healthy and if he does come back here, then at that point, we are going to go ahead. We are going to cut Chandler and we are going to pivot over to somebody like Corum. Going over to wide receiver, nobody's interesting on the waiver wire, and it's a league in which wide receiver depth doesn't matter too much. Definitely don't want to roster anybody here. And then going over to tight end, we have the elite tight end with Bowers that we're able to start every single week, regardless of the matchup. So really comfortable at this spot as well. But I mean, as we look at this team from a roster construction perspective, I love it. Obviously, we're the best team in the league. We have 2 top 5 wide receivers. Davante Adams looks to be a killer flex. Tank Dell, quality depth receiver here. You only need to start 2 receivers in a flex. So instead of us wasting a bunch of roster spot on wide receivers at the bottom end, like Alec Pierce that maybe have a cap ceiling, instead we are prioritizing these guys like, say, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Warren down there on the bottom end of the bench, which is what I personally prefer. So really the only thing that I would look to do here is go through and potentially move on from the running backs at the bottom end of this team, pick up some of the different names. With Benson, I would pick him up right this second. And then in terms of dropping Ty Chandler for a player like Blake Corum, I think you'd potentially actually wait until we get confirmation that Aaron Jones is good to go. But I really appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out in some way here. And again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and congrats on having a monstrous team. And thank you for taking advantage of that underdog promo. But let's move this over to Peanuts. Says, hey Mason, love the content. 3-3 so far. Last week won by 0.92. Oh no, we lost last week by 0.92. Embarrassing loss. My guy, you need to have a better game plan going in. But you need to play better defense. I don't know what to tell you. Not sure what to do at this point with the team and how we can improve. Was thinking about trading Chubb for Pacheco. Thanks for the team review. To be honest, I have Nick Chubb ranked over Isaiah Pacheco here rest of season. I am probably not the best person to look at this though, just because to be completely honest, I have no idea what to expect with the timeline that you have specifically with Nick Chubb. I'm sorry, with Isaiah Pacheco. I think it's a very real possibility that Pacheco does not come back this season, or at least during the fantasy football year. Now, of course, if you had a healthy Pacheco, I'd way rather have Pacheco over Nick Chubb at this point with the respective offenses that they play in. But I just have no idea. I think that if we could use the Nick Chubb production now, like on our team, like maybe if we need it, then I probably actually look to hold on to Chubb. And looking at the team, I think we may actually need the Nick Chubb production. So I'm probably not making this move. Now, going over to what we have at quarterback, we are rolling with the elite name. It is a 10-team format, so there should be decent quarterback options out there on the waiver wire. But still, with that being said, I mean, having Josh Allen, obviously we don't need a roster to quarterbacks. We're able to just go ahead and play him every single week, given the rushing upside that you have, as well as the fact that now Amari Cooper's coming over. There is that outside chance that all of a sudden you are actually going to see Josh Allen be a little bit more of a consistent passer here as well. Now, going over to what we have at running back, we are currently sitting with Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, really is the top 3 guys. And if we're looking at the Aaron Jones injury, I think it does put you in a situation in which it probably does make sense for us to just be a little bit more cautious with the depth that we have here at running back and actually look to hold on to Nick Chubb for now. I mean, maybe if we're a few weeks down the line, Aaron Jones is 100% good to go, and you're saying, Mason, there's no world in which I'm starting Nick Chubb. And at the same time, I think that Pacheco does come back. Then at that point, you can go ahead and possibly look to make that trade where we send the guaranteed touches that you have with a healthy Nick Chubb now and get maybe a little bit more of the long-term upside just in case Pacheco were to come back later on. But for how it stands currently, probably not a situation in which we want to be making that pivot. A couple different pivots I would make in terms of the waiver wire options here is I would definitely pick up Tyler Algier, where Algier is a desperation play, assuming he's fully healthy. But if you were to get an injury specifically to Bijan Robinson, then at that point, Tyler Algier does probably become a top 12 running back in fantasy. So for me, I would drop somebody like Kaimani Vidal, or I wouldn't drop Gibson just yet because obviously Ramondre Stevenson not at practice right now. It does seem to be that there's an outside chance you end up actually getting Ramondre Stevenson with another game out, and Gibson is possibly viable in a decent matchup. But yeah, I think you would drop Vidal for Tyler Algier. And then when Aaron Jones is back, I think you could also drop Ty Chandler for Roschon Johnson as well. But don't want to make that move until Aaron Jones is officially healthy. Now going over to wide receiver, Michael Pittman is out there on the waiver wire. For me personally, I would pivot from Christian Watson to Michael Pittman, especially as it seems that Dontavian Wicks maybe isn't as injured as was initially thought. Because then in that case, there's still so many wide receivers in Green Bay that can draw targets. We have A.J. Brown, Jaden Reed, Nico Collins. So looking at this, I think I would personally go through, pivot over to Michael Pittman. It's a league in which you can start 4 wide receivers weekly. So since you can start 4 wide receivers every single week, I'm probably not selling the wide receiver depth post Nico Collins injury, because realistically speaking, we may actually need the depth of these guys like Brandon Ayuk and Ladd McConkey. Like, I could see a world where we would actually start Michael Pittman Jr. off the waiver wire this week. Going over to tight end, we have Kincaid. I mean, there is an interesting pickup if you wanted to go after Kmet or Dallas Goedert available to you. So maybe instead of dropping Ty Chandler for Roschon, if Aaron Jones is officially good to go, you could drop Ty Chandler and pick up either Kmet or Dallas Goedert with the way that Dalton Kincaid's looked so far this season, and at the same time, the addition that you have of Amari Cooper into this offense. Because I do want to reiterate, while, I mean, obviously, we are much higher on Kincaid than these other tight ends to come into the year. Kincaid has been very disappointing, while at the same time, I mean, pretty much Kmet and Goddard have been better every single week than him. I mean, I even have Sam Laporta in the Flock League, and I went through and I personally picked up Cole Kmet as my tight end too, just in case Laporta keeps being a bum, and just in case Kmet keeps crushing, I could very easily see me starting Kmet over Laporta in the future. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but I think giving yourself the option does make sense. So in general, you're a team that can't just be thinking about the playoffs. We are dealing with a bunch of injuries as well, such as Nico Collins, Aaron Jones. So I think going through and trading away a quality depth piece like Nick Chubb, who looks like he is going to be back this week, for a player like Isaiah Pacheco is probably not the move we're wanting to make, as well as the fact that the way that this league is set up, you are more so incentivized to build around the wide receiver depth than you are so much to go through and trade 2-for-1 deals like sending Jaden Reed and Aaron Jones for an RB upgrade probably doesn't make a lot of sense in your format, especially with your roster in particular with these injuries. So I don't make the Pacheco deal. Not only do I not make the Pacheco deal, but at the same time, I actually think that we would just prioritize some of those pivots specifically down there on the waiver wire that we can easily make. So that's what I would do. I really hope I was able to help you out in some way here. Of course, if there's anything else I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. But thank you again for everything, and really hope I was able to help out. But let's move this over to Troy Gonzalez, one of those free Underdog team reviews. It's a Gut Grinders team name. Right now, we are currently sitting at 9th in the league analyzer. Right now, we have Jaden Daniels at quarterback. So if we are looking at Daniels, clearly we are able to start him every single week, regardless of what the matchup is. While I do really like Caleb Williams, at the same time, I can say there's no world in which I'm going to go through and start Caleb Williams over Jaden Daniels. So personally, I would actually feel pretty comfortable in going through and actually cutting Caleb Williams in favor of some of these other options on the waiver wire. And that's the luxury that you have having Jaden Daniels. I mean, even if Daniels were to get injured, or if you needed a bye week fill-in later in the season, you would still have the options out there on waivers such as Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers. You do potentially have interesting streaming QBs. So I would drop Caleb here, and instead I would go over to what we have at running back. Okay. Looking at what we have at the running back position, at the top, I mean, Brian Robinson is my RB2 in a 10-team league. I'd be very excited about. As my RB1 in a 10-team format, not so much. James Conner, RB2. This is a running back that you're able to go through and you are able to just see the high floor, but potentially the low ceiling based off the offense he's playing in and the receiving usage. Charbonnet, Braylon Allen, premium handcuff backs. But yeah, I think Davante I would definitely be playing over Charbonnet as well as Braylon Allen here if we had to. So I think Charbonnet is worth a roster spot. And I also think you can make an argument to pick up Tyler Algier over Braylon Allen based off the usage that we have with this new Jets coaching staff coming in. So a couple different things that I would do here. One, I'm probably going to go ahead. I'm going to drop Caleb Williams, pick up Javonte Williams. Two, I'm going to drop Braylon Allen, pick up Tyler Algier. And then going over to wide receiver, it's a league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So the wide receiver depth doesn't matter much. I need to go through, and I guess we need to update our rankings on the site real quick with the Shaheed news. Like I said, if you didn't see previously, Shaheed is out for this season, had season-ending surgery. I think we had Shaheed previously as about wide receiver 46. Seems like this man's going to go to the very, very bottom. Let's go ahead and let's get that done. That way it's not showing Shaheed as the best waiver option in any of these. But yeah, wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins could be an interesting pickup, but definitely not something we are wanting to change with this team. I would like getting Hopkins on the team if possible, just given the possibility of the Davante Adams trade. I mean, if you were to find yourself in a situation in which Hopkins ends up going to the Kansas City Chiefs, then all of a sudden, I mean, this could just be a massive, massive switch. Going over to tight end, you currently have Laporta as well as Tucker Kraft. So 2 potential tight end ones that we're probably just going to be playing the matchups with and riding the hot hand going into the future. So overall, I like the team. I think we cut Caleb, we cut Braylon. We pick up the combination of Javonte and Algier. I think we look to make a 2-for-1 deal and tier up at wide receiver if possible, where if we can sell like Jackson Smith and Jigba and Terry McLaurin to go get to a low-end wide receiver 1, somebody like Chris Godwin. I think somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr. as well for the long-term upside. I think that could be interesting. And then if we are able to open up that roster spot for free, what we are probably going to do at that point is we are probably going to go through and actually pick up DeAndre Hopkins with the hope that he finds himself in a better situation. But I really hope I was able to help you out here in some way. And of course, thank you for being a member of the flock. And I do really appreciate you. But let's move this over to our next question. It's coming out from Angel Tovar. Says, hey, Mason, wanted to get your opinion on this trade. Thank you again for stopping by the live stream. And again, sorry about that team review issue that we had a couple days ago. But anyway, going from Taylor to Chase, clear upgrade. Godwin to Najee, clear downgrade. We are getting the best player in the deal. But obviously, Godwin looks like a wide receiver 1. Taylor looks like an RB1. We're getting an elite receiver in return. But at the same time, Najee Harris is probably not startable now that Jaylen Warren is back in. So if we look at this team, I think the value lies with the Chris Godwin and Jonathan Taylor side of it for most formats. Now, with that being said, this is an 8-team league. This is an 8-team league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So at running back, we have Breece Hall. We have Kenneth Walker. We have Chase Brown. We have Jonathan Brooks. Wide receiver, we have Davante Smith. We have Cooper Kupp. We have Brandon Ayuk. We would have Jamar Chase. So I want to be on record. For most people watching this, in most scenarios, Chris Godwin's the winning side. For you, you are giving up so much value. What I would rather do is I would want to go like, oh, hey, instead of giving you Chris Godwin, can I instead give you Davante Smith and you can keep Najee Harris? Then in that case, in your league where it's an 8-team league, start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. I think I'm a lot more excited about it. But specifically also in your league where it's an 8-team league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex and we are so loaded and depth doesn't matter at all in this format. I still think it's something that you could look to do even if we may not be as excited for it. But I really appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out in some way here. And again, sorry for the issue that we had a few days back, but happy that we were able to resolve it. Now, let's move this over to our next question. This next one coming out from Dave. It's a start-sit question where he says, Mason, I traded Reed, Dobbins, Kyler for Daniels per your advice. Who to start and who to put out of the lineup this week? So, obviously, we're getting Daniels in at quarterback. We no longer have Reed or Dobbins. So, now at wide receiver, I guess we're going to go with JSN. And then for the flex, I don't want to play Romeo Doubs. I'd rather get a running back in. We don't have Dobbins to play. So then at that point, I think you're going to go ahead. You're going to play James Conner. So we go Jaden Daniels, obviously, when we get him. Kenneth Walker, Jordan Mason, Davante Smith, JSN, and James Conner, my friend. Okay. Now, Sean Philly coming out with a trade question. Here, this is Diggs, Aaron Jones, Jalen Hurts versus Harrison and Chase. Diggs to Harrison, short-term downgrade, long-term upgrade. Aaron Jones, Jalen Hurts to Jamar Chase. We don't know if the team's linked. If you have a viable quarterback pivot where we don't necessarily need to rely upon Jalen Hurts here, I think you can make this move. Obviously, you would need a viable pivot if possible, though. Now, Cathreg, always happy to see this, says, I feel as though I may be lacking wide receiver 1 depth ever since we lost Rice. Please let me know what would be some good trade packages to put together, along with anything else I'm lacking on my team. Thanks, Mason. Thank you. Looking at this is the Freddie team name. Right now, we are one of the top 3 teams in this league with the league analyzer. And we are 5-1 as well, which is really nice to see. And this is a league in which there are only 8 teams. You start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So the depth in this format just simply is not going to matter at all. You are highly, highly incentivized to build around the best assets we can, to make 2-for-1 deals, to make 3-for-1 deals, because in that case, you can go to the waiver wire. You can pick up phenomenal players for free, and I don't say phenomenal players in general, but great waiver wire options. Like right now, the best according to each position. Quarterback, you have, say, Caleb Williams. Running back, Ramondre and Charbonnet. Wide receiver, Rome, Ladd, Keenan, Pittman, Kirk, Downs. Tight end, we have Pitts, David Njoku, Tucker Kraft. So, I mean, this is a situation in which you are highly incentivized to go and get that stud, if possible, in a 2-for-1 deal. But looking at what we have here, quarterback, you are currently rolling with Josh Allen. With Allen, I think he's QB4 rest of season, which in a 12-team format we love. He's a high-end elite level QB. In an 8-team league, quarterback 4 is just kind of average, right? So we're okay at quarterback. I don't act like we're the strongest team at QB just because 8-team league, everybody's going to be pretty strong. Going over to running back, we have Gibbs, Montgomery, RB1, RB2 combo in an 8-team league. James Cook, Brian Robinson, also plenty of running back production as well. What I would look to do here specifically in an 8-team league is potentially go ahead and try to get some value from what you have, say with the running back that has the expiration dates with Jordan Mason. Where obviously it's not like we're expecting Jordan Mason to be a massive difference-making player when you have McCaffrey back in. However, with that being said, you are in a situation in which Jordan Mason should be a great option for most teams. You just don't even need him here. I mean, we have Gibbs, Montgomery, James Cook, Brian Robinson, right? Jordan Mason's arguably our RB5. So, I mean, in a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, if we can go and attack one of the teams that needs some help at running back, like this team here at the bottom that has the Travis Etienne injury that possibly has to start Javonte Williams, I would love to send them some running back help and a wide receiver to go get a wide receiver upgrade if possible. Like if we can go ahead and send them, say, Jordan Mason and Stephon Diggs or Jordan Mason and Jaden Reed and get to either Amon-Ra St. Brown or Justin Jefferson, I would look to do that. And honestly, in an 8-team league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, so we have all the depth in the world, while this may not necessarily be a trade I would recommend to everybody here in your specific league format, I do think it could make a decent amount of sense. If you wanted to go through and if you wanted to potentially sell the combo of, say, a Brian Robinson and Stephon Diggs to get the elite receiver, or James Cook and Stephon Diggs to get the elite receiver, or even David Montgomery and Stephon Diggs or Jaden Reed to go get Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson. Because then in that case, you can just go over to the waiver wire. You can backfill running back depth for free by picking up Ramondre Stevenson. We have the elite wide receiver to pair alongside Jamar Chase. And yeah, I would feel very comfortable with it. I'm going over to wide receiver. I'm assuming that Rashee Rice is currently in the IR slot. Obviously, if Rice is not in the IR slot, then in that case, you are going to go through and you are going to cut him and pick up Rome Odunze as the long-term upside. And honestly, especially if Juju's dealing with the hamstring now, that would be something I would check in on your end. But if you are worried about the Juju injury, then at that point, I think we could say that you may have a little bit more upside here long-term as well with a player like Rome Odunze over Juju Smith-Schuster, and a league here that is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex formats. Really, the only thing that matters is upside, upside, upside in an 8-team league. So I think plan A is we go attack that team that really needs a running back by sending them one of the depth RBs and Stephon Diggs or Jaden Reed. And we go ahead and we try to get that elite level receiver that they have. Plan B, we go ahead and we just try to maybe consolidate some of this running back production where we trade Jordan Mason and David Montgomery or Jordan Mason and James Cook. And we go pivot up to a running back that you like a little bit more. Maybe you sell, say, Jordan Mason and Jonathan Brooks and see if we can go get to Joe Mixon. But you can consolidate up out running back. We can trade a depth running back with a receiver for a stud receiver. And then also, I think you could consider dropping somebody like Juju Smith-Schuster for somebody like Rome Odunze if you believe Rome has a little more upside rest of season. But I really appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out in some way here. And again, if there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. But thank you again for everything. And I really hope I was able to help out in some way. But let's go over to Ethan's question. So starters are Kyron, Bijan, Mason, Neighbors, Hill, Bowers. Would you do this or Bijan and Debo for Breece and Waddle? Bijan to Breece, upgrade. Debo to Waddle, downgrade. Personal preference, up to you. Bijan to Barkley, upgrade. Debo to Brooks, downgrade. Wide receivers, we are sitting with Neighbors, Tyreek Hill. We don't have the team link, so I'm not able to see everybody here. I think, yes, you do this. Maybe this one, we are elite at wide receiver. It seems like this isn't going to be a 12-team format. It seems like it's maybe a little bit shallower. And 2, at the same time, we can use the tie break that obviously we know Barkley's already better than Bijan rest of season. But at the same time, Barkley's through the bye week as well, so you should be getting an extra game on the Barkley side in comparison to Bijan. So we will take Barkley and Brooks. I don't love it, though. Now, Chazzy coming out with a start-sit question. Here at quarterback, we're going to go A-Rich over Rodgers. Rodgers, you have an implied team total of like 19 points. Like the Colts offense should be better, and A-Rich is going to run the ball more. Brian Robinson is back in practice. We'll go Brian Robinson in a beautiful matchup. Wide receiver, we are going to go ahead, and we will probably end up, I mean, a bunch of these guys look very similar to me, to be honest. Like, I think you could make an argument for pretty much any of them. I think you maybe just take the certainty with DK Metcalf in a game with an over-under over 50 points. And then for the flex spot, James Cook got in a full practice. When in doubt, you go with the running back that is in a great offense with a 3-down workload. So we'll go James Cook. But Jonathan Taylor did not practice, so I'm assuming that we have no JT this week. Now, Johnson coming out with a team review says, need some long-term playoff upside advice as I can afford to wait with my record. League is reluctant to trade unless it's the top names on my roster. Obvious moves to be wide receiver for running back, but which wide receiver should we move and which running back should we target? I don't just love Hall if there's a better long-term suggestion. I honestly think with the new change with this coaching staff that Breece Hall is phenomenal and an elite level name that we're not looking to move on from. So especially with this being a full PPR formats, I would not trade away Hall. I would hold on to him. But anyway, it's an 8-team league where you can start up to 4 receivers weekly. But in general, obviously, 8-team league, we'll have great options down there on the waiver wire. We want to still be incentivized to go through and to make 2-for-1 deals to try to improve inside the starting lineup. Quarterback, you are sitting with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, you can start every single week regardless of what the matchup is. We have the rushing upside, 8-team league. It's not as strong of a spot as obviously it would be in a 12-team format, but still. Now, moving over to what we have at running back. We are currently sitting with Breece Hall, Dave Montgomery, possibly 2 RB1s depending on your format. I would say in an 8-team league, probably an RB1 and an RB2 rest of season in a full PPR formats. But regardless, solid spot at running back. We have Chase Brown, Rico Dowdle, Bucky Irving as quality depth pieces. I don't want to act like this is the strongest running back room in the league. Obviously, if you look at the league analyzer, currently we are 5th. But yeah, a completely fine spot at running back. Going over to wide receiver, we have 2 wide receiver ones with A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase. Beyond that, we have Adams, Brian Thomas as quality depth pieces. This is a league where you can start 4 receivers weekly. Amari Cooper going over to Buffalo is obviously very exciting. You have the Christian Kirk depth. And going over to the waiver wire, we have great options on waivers. I mean, you have guys like Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen. What I would personally look to do here is I think in an 8-team league, everybody should be extremely strong really at at running back and wide receiver. One of the very few ways that you can actually separate your team from the rest of the field is by having a top end tight end, which sadly we don't right now. Knowing that we can backfill with some depth wide receivers relatively easily. What I would really like to do is I would really like to look at what you have with upgrading our tight end spot. Like going ahead and looking at maybe this team here, they have Travis Kelce and Evan Ingram. If you could shoot them a message saying, hey, you don't need Kelce, you have Evan Ingram, blah, 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 and hype them up a bit. There in that case, if we can bring in Kelce and really find a way to differentiate our roster, I would really like that. How we could maybe go about it is This team maybe needs an upgraded flex. If possible, if we could send them like Davante Adams and Tucker Kraft to get to Travis Kelce, or Davante Adams and TJ Hawkinson, whoever they would prefer. Honestly, I think you could feel free to add in a running back depth piece here as well. Going over to what we have possibly with some of the other tight ends on this team. I'm sorry, some of the other top tight end rooms in this league. This team has Kittle. They just dealt with the Collins injury. One thing that you could look to do, of course, is just pick up Collins on the cheap, where if you wanted to see if we could send Davante Adams and go get a player like Nico Collins to just have the long-term upside there, while maybe we're sacrificing the short-term production. We're 5-1. Obviously, we can begin thinking about the fantasy football playoffs, which Collins should be a better option than Davante Adams for that stretch. I think you could possibly send this team who's 3-3, Davante Adams for Nico Collins. And if not, maybe you try to pivot off of, say, Davante Adams in a 2-for-1 deal with Tucker Kraft to go get a player like George Kittle. I think that could be very interesting. But in general, I think you have a great team. Obviously, we are 5-1 for a reason. I think the move that you make is honestly running back we're kind of fine with. I'm not really trying to do much at running back. I think it'll be tougher than just if we can get an elite tight end by selling a wide receiver depth piece, or maybe pivoting over from a wide receiver that gives you the security right now to somebody that has the elite ceiling for the playoff stretch, such as Nico Collins. I think those would be the two moves I would try out. And if we can't get those done, I think another thing I would consider specifically here, where we really should just be thinking about what you have with upside in an 8-team league, is I don't see really the path to the ceiling for Christian Kirk. And I think I'd probably look to move on from Kirk and pick up Rome Odunze off the waiver wire for free. But yeah, those would be the moves that I would be looking to make. But I really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. Again, thank you again for being a member of the flock, my friend. And yeah, wishing you the best of luck. Obviously, we don't really need it too much. We are sitting here at 5-1. But of course, if y'all wanted to get a free team review, an easy thing to get a free team review is actually going over to Underdog Fantasy with the link in the description or the live chat and using promo code FLOCK. If you use code FLOCK, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, with code FLOCK, you will also be getting a free Bo Nix pick for tonight's game, more than less than half a total yard. And you'll get a free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single day. You just need to make sure that you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to go through and accredit you with that free team review voucher. But you can find that link in the live chat and the description. But Ameeth coming out with our next question says, Analyzer said I won, but can you give me your take? Give me your take. TJ and without TJ. Okay. So Love to Hurts upgrade. Ayuk to London. I'm sorry. St. Brown to London downgrade. Ayuk to Pickens. Who the hell cares? Who paid TJ Hawkinson to get it done? Looking at the team here, quarterback, we were rolling with Caleb Williams before this. It's specifically a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. So in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, you are highly incentivized to get the elite level quarterback. I think that this is a very fair trade and honestly is up to you. I feel like we are giving up the best player, but we are getting the second and third best players. It really does come down to your take on what you have with the gap between Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts. I'll say if it's a 6-point passing touchdown format, you lost this deal. 6-point passing touchdown format, the gap between Love and Hurts isn't going to be large enough. 4-point passing touchdown format, there I think you could definitely consider Jalen Hurts. Now going over to Ryan's question. Says, you told me not to do Zay for Dobbins. Does this trade make more or less sense than that? I'd rather have Chase Brown over Ladd McConkey, Zay for Jameson. I think you are getting a downgrade. I would rather probably have the Zay side of this just because I really can't trust Jameson personally. So if I was going to be doing this deal, what I would want is I would probably just want to keep I don't even know how could we structure this. If we could do Ladd for Chase Brown, I would love it. Obviously, much easier said than done. If we could do maybe Flowers for Chase Brown and Jameson, I would do that as well without Ladd. But yeah, I'm not a big Jameson guy. I mean, Jameson, you're averaging fewer than like 3 targets a game over the past month. But Starvin Marvin says, can't decide which quarterback. Also, should we hold or drop the Bears DST on bye to pick up another? So we actually went over this in the live stream last night. But if you look at the Bears schedule coming out of the bye week. So one, if you hold on to the Bears, you're going to have to roster 2 defenses this week. 2, then the Bears get the Commanders. The Cardinals, good matchup. Patriots, great matchup. But then the Packers, the Vikings, the Lions, the Niners, the Vikings, the Lions. You have a 6-week stretch where you're going to cut them anyway. Like, there's no way in hell I'm rostering them through that 6-week stretch. I don't want to play them against the Commanders. I would just go ahead and I would cut the Bears DST and pick up another one. Quarterback here, really tough spot. Mahomes has a bad matchup. So does Jared Goff. I think Goff's matchup against the Vikings defense, honestly, maybe a little bit tougher at this point. I think we go Mahomes. And then we don't have any of the other players on there yet. So we're just going to go with Mahomes over Goff. And yeah, I think you do cut the Bears DST. But Death Kamaz coming out with a question. This is Belt to Ass is the team name. Here we are currently sitting at 7th in the league analyzer, pretty much right in the middle of this league. We are currently sitting 3-3 as well, so we have a right in the middle record. And currently at quarterback, we have CJ Stroud as well as Drake May. So looking at Stroud and May, this is QB combo in which I probably am never going to go through, and I'm never going to be starting May over Stroud, to be honest with you. But obviously, Drake May maybe has a little bit of upside depending on how much he's going to run the ball here. Looking at quarterbacks on the waiver wire, I would way rather have like Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff over Drake May, to be honest. Like, I would actually cut May and then start Cousins over Stroud this week. Personally, that's what I would be looking to do, to be honest. And real quick, if you have not done so already, I just checked in and it looks like less than 6% of y'all have hit that like button. Please drop a like on this live stream. I have live streamed for every single day in the 2020 season, the 2021 season, the 2022 season, the 2023 season, and now the 2024 season without missing a single day. So we're 5 years straight, not missing a single day during the fantasy football season. So hit that like button if you have not done so already. But anyway, yeah, quarterback, I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut Drake May and I'm going to be picking up a Mr. Kirk Cousins, and I'm going to be starting Kirk Cousins this week over CJ Stroud. Going over to what we have at running back, we are currently sitting with Kenneth Walker, James Conner. So solid RB1, solid RB2 combo. Kareem Hunt, great depth. Charbonnet, great depth. Running back room, absolutely no complaints here whatsoever. I would say if you are looking at what you have with Ty Chandler, if Aaron Jones does come back this week, and then at that point, you're looking at a situation in which Chandler is splitting backup duties with Cam Akers. He's not even a premium handcuff. I would just go ahead and I would cut Ty Chandler. I'd probably rather have either Jalen Warren, Roshan, or Trey Benson, to be honest. But obviously, we're not doing that until we get confirmation that Aaron Jones is good to go. Going over to what you have at wide receiver, we are rolling with Tyreek Hill, long-term wide receiver 1, Davante Adams, Jaden Reed. Wide receiver depth actually does matter a considerable amount here, specifically because this is a league in which you can start 4 receivers weekly, and it's a 12-team format as well. So you know what I actually probably do? If you think that there's an outside chance that DeAndre Hopkins ends up finding a favorable situation and ends up getting traded, I think you could go through and you could actually look to cut May, and instead of picking up a backup quarterback, you could just pick up DeAndre Hopkins. I'm fine rostering the additional quarterbacks here in this league. I'm sorry, additional wide receivers in this league, specifically because this is a situation in which it's a 12-team format where you can start 4 receivers weekly, so the depth does matter a little bit more. We have the elite tight end with George Kittle, so we don't need to back up tight end there. I don't want to be selling. I think you hold Tyreek, you hold Adams, you hold Reed. They're very important in this format. The team's 3-3, but honestly, it's incredible that we are 3-3 because we've had the Kenneth Walker injury. We had the Davante Adams injury. We had Jaden Reed losing his quarterback. We had Tyreek Hill losing his quarterback. So now that this team's getting healthier going into the future, I think that this is going to be a much better squad. And really the only thing that I'm doing here is I'm cutting Drake May and I'm either picking up DeAndre Hopkins. If you think Hopkins has a shot to get dealt out of Tennessee, or I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually be looking to pick up Cousins to play Kirk Cousins over CJ Stroud this week. With Stroud having a tough matchup against the Packers, and on top of that, with Cousins sitting with an implied team total that is 5 points higher than what you have from CJ Stroud. But I really hope I was able to help you out in some way here and really hope I was able to do something for you. But let me move over and answer some of the questions that we have in the live chat. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I'd be happy to get to as many as I can. Let's see. Rio says, did he talk about Olave yet? I'm assuming there's nothing to really discuss with Olave. Maybe we go through and maybe we bump up Olave having no Shaheed, but obviously Olave is going to be missing this week. I'll tell you one thing. Olave is going to be a buy low candidate for me next week. We can look at my rest of season ranks on Olave. I have Olave right behind like Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper. I know it sounds like extremely low. Oh, you have him at wide receiver 30. You're crazy. If you go and make wide receiver rankings, you'll see how many solid wide receivers there are in fantasy. We have him right ahead of like Tank Dell, Brandon Ayuk, rest of season. So maybe without Shaheed, you can jump Olave over Waddle. But especially knowing that you're going to get an extra game from a lot of these other receivers, I don't want to do that just yet. Okay. Jack says, thanks for the review. Watching now, great stuff. I just need to stop trading. Really appreciate you, Jack. And if you have any more questions about that team review we just made for you, please let me know in the live chat. I'd be happy to try to get it for you. Amon says, where do you have Neighbors rest of season? Is he a solid sell? So we actually listed Malik Neighbors as a sell high candidate before the concussion. Not because I thought that he was going to get injured, but just because looking at most people's rest of season rankings, this was at the time that Jamar Chase was really struggling. They had him ahead of like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. And I do want to reiterate that if you're playing in a league where you can sell Malik Neighbors for Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, I would do that. But I do want to reiterate also that he's still an elite wide receiver 1. Like, while I would sell for the other elite wide receiver 1s and better offenses, I have Malik Neighbors wide receiver 6 rest of season. And in terms of him versus A.J. Brown, I think you could potentially make an argument that he outscores A.J. Brown from a points per game perspective rest of season. But my thing is, here, A.J. Brown's already through the bye week, so you're going to get the extra game out of him. Now, moving over to what we have with our next question. Traveler says, would you trade Aaron Jones and Evan Ingram for Breece Hall? Hell yes. With this new coaching staff coming in and giving Breece Hall just absolutely all the work and none of it going over to Braylon Allen, I think you have to go out and quote unquote overpay if possible for Breece Hall. Austin, welcome to being a member of the flock. No Name says, is Demario Douglas worth the roster spot? In 12-team formats, for sure. It really comes down to if you think that Drake May has the upside to come in and save this Patriots offense. Not that it's going to be a great offense, but potentially that it can be slightly below average offense instead of being one of the worst offenses in the league. Okay. Aaron says, I think Kupp will move up your rankings very fast. Kupp's already a top 10 wide receiver for me in my rankings. We have Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 9 rest of season here. Obviously, there's maybe a little bit more risk with the injury in comparison to what you have with somebody like Drake London. I think Tyreek Hill with a healthy Tua is maybe a little bit of a better option as well. Malik Neighbors, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson. Can y'all please let me know, would y'all have Cooper Kupp higher than wide receiver 9 rest of season? Like, who do you put Cooper Kupp ahead of there? And also, we just hit 300 likes on this live stream. Thank you for everybody going down there and dropping a like on the stream. I really appreciate it. Austin says, should we be starting Courtland Sutton over Javonte tonight in a full PPR format? I think Sutton probably gives you the higher ceiling. Javonte gives you the higher floor. I am starting Javonte tonight in the Flock League. One, because I don't know if I can trust Stevenson. And 2, because I'll be watching the game with Sal, who is my opponent. So it will be fun if Javonte goes off and I get to talk some trash. So there will be probably no player I'm rooting for harder this week than Javonte Williams tonight. Because, it'll be fun to talk some trash, if possible. But let's move this over and answer some more of the questions that we have on the site. Obviously, if you ever wanted to get a guaranteed answer, you could always go over to flockfantasy.com with the link in the live chat here. You can ask also you could just go to the button in the top right corner and hit expert advice on flockfantasy.com. You can ask a team review, a trade question, a start sit question, a super message, whatever you are wanting to do. If you wanted that team review, I'd highly recommend taking advantage of the offer that we have on Underdog Fantasy, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy with the link in the live chat and use promo code FLOCK, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, you'll actually be getting a free Bo Nix pick, more than less than half a total yard for the game tonight. And also, you'll be getting that free team review in the live stream that we're doing every night as well. Just make sure you go through that link to Underdog Fantasy, use code FLOCK, make your $10 deposit, and set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog. Now, let's move this over to our next question. It's coming out from JB. Always happy to see it. Says, hey, Mason, just wanted to get your thoughts on the team and what moves should we be making. Thank you. No, thank you. Looking at this is currently the second team in the league analyzer. And I just realized something that we should probably be doing, and we have not done it a single time this live stream. So I am super sorry for the team reviews that we've already gotten through that we did not do this with. But we actually just launched something completely new on flockfantasy.com where during these streams, I can actually, if I recognize your name, I see you out in the live stream a lot, I can click your name and I can grant you a free voucher for another question in the future. So like, for example, here, JB goes through and he asked a roster review. I can go, give JB a free start sit question for the future. And I can go ahead and I can send him that. So we just sent JB a free start sit question. So what we're going to do from now on is if anybody purchases a roster review on the sites, we're going to make sure that we get them sent over a free start sit question or a free trade question. If you want to let me know in the live chat what you prefer between the two, obviously let me know. I'd be happy to get you whatever you want, but it's just another way that I can try to go through and I can try to my best to give back to y'all. Cause obviously y'all give me already way more than I could ever possibly deserve. So trying to do everything I can to give back to y'all as well. Okay. But anyway, going over to quarterback, we are currently rolling with Burrow as well as Justin Fields. So if you're looking at the news with Fields, I think he should be starting. I'm not even a Justin Fields guy, but now that Russ is starting over him, I think that we probably need to go through and we probably need to pivot over to a different option on the waiver wire. I would cut Justin Fields, and if you really wanted to roster two quarterbacks here, it is something that you can do. I think you could pick up Stafford. In reality, what I probably would just do instead is I'd either pick up a premium handcuff back. A Ray Davis would have been more appealing if it wasn't for the fact that you actually had James Cook back at practice in full. So I would probably actually not pick up Ray Davis. If you wanted to go with the running back, I think I would actually maybe look at Trey Benson. Once we get confirmation that James Cook will be good to go this week, I'll probably move Trey Benson ahead of Ray Davis in my rest of season ranks. Going over to wide receiver, I think I would actually probably end up just dropping Justin Fields for DeAndre Hopkins. Going over to running back, we have Taylor banked up, we have Brooks banked up, but it's not like these players are going to be out forever. I mean, you are going to eventually get them back in. We still have Mixon and Dobbins as super quality starts. In the meantime, we have some depth here with Kamani Vidal. So running back room is great. Going over to wide receiver, it's pretty strong as well, where we have A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, two long-term wide receiver ones. We also have JSN and Darnell Mooney as quality depth pieces. So by no means is this a situation in which we need to be worried about really any position here. I think that we are strong across the board. There's a reason why we are 4-2, even dealing with the Cooper Kupp injury. And at the same time, we can say that team's going to be better going into the future as we get some of these injured guys back in. But if you could maybe pick up somebody like DeAndre Hopkins for just absolutely free here, where with Hopkins, he is a wide receiver that I don't know, stuck in a garbage situation, but the usage is going up in a way where I personally think there's that outside chance that he ends up getting dealt to a team that you are excited about the offense, like the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think I would probably just cut Fields for Hopkins. Obviously, trades here don't really look super exciting. Going over to tight end, I would way rather have Cole Kmet over Cade Otton. We combine their names. But the issue is Kmet's on bye. We have no Hawkinson. So we just need a tight end to play this week. We don't want to roster 3 tight ends here. So I think with the team, it's set up really nicely. There's a reason that we are at the very top of the league analyzer. There's a reason that we are 4-2. Really the only thing that I could potentially think about is if you could potentially go through and cut Fields, pick up Hopkins. After we get through this week, if Cade Otton's still out there on the waiver wire, cut Cade Otton and pick up Cole Kmet. And outside of that, I probably would prefer prefer Trey Benson over Vidal. Now, with that being said, I don't want to tell you need to make that pivot because I do think there's that outside chance that we are maybe just sitting here with Vidal on the squad, specifically because we have Dobbins. So I think we are kind of okay if need be. But I really appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out in some way. And again, thank you for being a member of the flock. I'm happy that we were able to get you over that free start sit voucher as well. So if you ever want to ask me a start sit question with this team, you can just send it over for free on the site, my friend. But really do appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out. But Eddie Boy coming out with a question says, I have Tyreek at receiver. Also, we have Taylor, Jacobs, Kareem Hunt. Does this help my roster? Well, we're going from Chase to Lamb and picking up Walker for free. So I think the difference between Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb is negligible. I think that they're about the same guy, and it's up to you on who you want. So if you're picking up a free RB1 by making this deal, it is an absolute no-brainer, and of course we want to do it. So yes, let's go ahead and let's get the CeeDee Lamb side, not even remotely close. But Texas Money Team coming out with one of those free Underdog Team reviews. Really appreciate you and excited to check this out. This is El Mincho. This is the 3rd team in the league analyzer. We are currently sitting at 2-4, however, so I'm assuming maybe we've dealt with some injuries. And pulling it up, it is a 10-team league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So with these league settings, wide receiver depth really is not going to matter. Any opportunity that we get to sell a depth receiver and get an upgrade inside the starting lineup is something that we are wanting to do. So looking at what we have at quarterback, we are currently rolling with Jaden Daniels. So we have an elite level quarterback that we're able to start every single week, regardless of matchup. With that in mind, obviously, we are not going to need a backup quarterback. Feel very comfortable in saying it. Love to see it. I mean, if you wanted to pick up a backup quarterback, the best option would be Anthony Richardson, probably so you can see what A-Rich would do this week. But definitely not something that you have to do. Going over to what we have at running back, you're currently rolling with Jahmyr Gibbs as well as Bijan Robinson. So, I mean, we do have 2 RB1s here rest of season, 2 top 10 backs. Absolutely beautiful. Obviously, Bijan Robinson's been disappointing so far, but honestly, this offense just looks like it's really turning the corner here for the Atlanta Falcons. Going over to what we have with Rico Dowdle and Bucky Irving as well. 2 solid running back depth pieces that you are able to start every single week if need be. Are we super excited about it? Man, probably not. But when we have the elite names at the top, it's not a big deal. And obviously, if we were to get an injury where Bucky Irving is just the full-blown starting running back in Tampa, these RBs do have upside. So really love that. We have Ray Davis, the premium handcuff back. It does seem like you may end up getting James Cook back in. So if James Cook sounds like he's going to play this week, which right now it does seem like that. He did get in a full practice. I think I could really consider dropping Ray Davis and instead of picking up Tyler Algier. And honestly, I would do that kind of regardless of us having Bijan Robinson or not. It's a 2-4 team. This absolutely freaking sucks. Because on a 2-4 roster, I think you have to explore the possibility of selling Nico Collins. Because looking at this squad, you are set up so nicely here for the fantasy football playoffs. Neighbors, Nico Collins would be both wide receiver 1s. Olave looks like he's becoming more appealing. Now that you have the Shaheed injury, Jalen Waddle's going to get Tua back, and Jalen Waddle will be more appealing. So, I mean, this is a wide receiver room that a lot of these guys will have more long-term value than they give you short-term production, which is what we really like on a team that looks like it's destined to make it to the fantasy football playoffs. However, sitting on a team where instead you're looking at maybe a roster that's going to miss the playoffs due to the injuries, due to the record. I think that the move you potentially have to make is we have to go to one of the teams that are currently 4-2, 5-1, and see if they'll take Nico Collins and give us a stud to play right now. So like this team with AJ Brown, if we can go and approach them and go, hey, I'll give you Nico Collins and Jalen Waddle, or I'll give you Nico Collins and Ladd McConkey. Give me the option that's going to help us out right this second. I think that would make a ton of sense for your team to stay in it. And you could hype them up, say, hey, you're guaranteed to be in the playoffs. Why don't you get the upside of the other 2 guys? This team sitting with Jamar Chase, Davante Adams. Maybe it's going to be a little bit tougher to make a deal with them for Chase. But I mean, we could still try to do the same thing by sending them Nico Collins and then maybe like Chris Olave and trying to get to Jamar Chase. This team's 5-1. They have Justin Jefferson. I think we try to do the same thing with them. But yeah, it sucks. But specifically on a 2-4 roster, I think that you are in a situation in which we probably need to be selling the long-term upside and getting in the short-term production. Going over to tight end, we have the elite level tight end that we are able to start every single week with Trey McBride. Don't need a backup tight end in this instance. Feel super comfortable in saying that, but I think it's a really strong team. I think it's a team that's gotten very unlucky with injuries so far this season. I think if we were to keep this team as is for the fantasy football playoffs, we absolutely crush it. And if we were 4-2, I would say we're not changing a single thing. But specifically on a roster that's 2-4, where we need to be thinking a little bit more about the short-term production rather than the long-term upside. I think I'd go through and I think I'd sell Nico Collins and Chris Olave and try to pivot over to one of the elite receivers that's not currently injured. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way here, my friend. And yeah, thank you again for everything. Now let's move this over to Scotia. This is a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, so the depth's not going to matter much. Our team name is Wheelchair Fetish. Probably a top 5 weird. If we're rating these team names on just straight up weirdness, the weirdest team names I've heard, your top 5 for sure. Well, we are currently sitting second in the league analyzer. We'll be really excited to check this out for you. And I definitely want to thank you again for taking advantage of the Underdog promo and getting that free team review. And also, let me use this as a little spinoff that if anybody else here wanted that free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single day, what I'd recommend doing is going over to Underdog Fantasy and taking advantage of the offer that we have, where if you use promo code FLOCK, you'll get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with promo code FLOCK as well, you are going to be getting a free Bo Nix pick, more than less than half a total yard for the game tonight, and a free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single day. So you can find that link in the live chat that says free Bo Nix pick, and just make sure that you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I know who to credit with that free team review voucher. But anyway, going back over to this squad, it's a league where wide receiver depth's not going to be super important, and there are phenomenal options out there on the waiver wire. So currently sitting with quarterback of Dak Prescott and Geno Smith, probably have one of the worst quarterback rooms in the league, right? I mean, we can reasonably just go through and play the matchups between these two guys going into the future. We have Jared Goff. I definitely play Geno Smith over Jared Goff this week, given the difficult matchup that you have for Goff against the best defense in the NFL here. So it's a really strong team. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we can do. I would love to take a wide receiver depth piece, especially now that you are getting Cooper Kupp back in. And if you're able to potentially sell, say, Terry McLaurin and Dak Prescott and go get an upgrade at quarterback, this team currently has Lamar and Purdy. Like if we can send them, say, Terry and Dak to get to Lamar, or Davante Adams and Dak Prescott to get to Lamar, I think it makes so much sense here, specifically in a league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Because if you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, the wide receiver depth's not going to be super important. Not only will the wide receiver depth not be super important, but at the same time, you're actually in a situation in which you have great options over there on the waiver wire. Where if we were to sell, say, Davante Adams and Dak Prescott to get the elite quarterback like Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, or or Jalen Hurts, you could just go over to the waiver wire and pick up Jalen Waddle for completely free. So opening up the roster spot would actually give us a decent amount of value as well. So if you're able to pick up Waddle for free off waivers, it's more like instead of trading away, say, Davante Adams and Dak for just Lamar, it's like you're trading away Davante Adams and Dak for Lamar and Jalen Waddle. So I would absolutely love to make a move like that. Going over to running back, we have 3 RB1s here in the long term. Love to see it with Gibbs, Bijan, Achane. Absolutely no hesitation here. We have Aaron Jones as a quality depth running back piece as well. So typically I'd say in this kind of format, we want to be rostering more running backs than wide receivers. However, with this running back room, I'm completely fine with us not rostering a bunch of RBs now. With that being said, still, if we could try to make some 2-for-1 deals with this roster and open up an additional roster spot, you have a great waiver wire pickup sitting out there with either Jonathan Brooks or Rico Dowdle, which I'd be very interested in. Now, going over to what we have at wide receiver, we have Kupp, Adams. So wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. Rest of season, super strong. I think you could look to sell Davante Adams in that 2-for-1 deal to get an elite quarterback, because we also have McLaurin, Olave, Dell, Jameson. So we do have plenty of depth. And at the same time, you have guys like Jalen Waddle sitting out there for free. So you can just go ahead and pick up somebody like Waddle as well. And honestly, even if you weren't going to make that 2-for-1 deal, what I would probably do is I would probably cut Jameson Williams for Jalen Waddle, just because I think from a week-to-week perspective, it's much easier to project out the volume that you're going to be able to see with Waddle once Tua comes back in, and be confident in starting him in comparison to Jameson, where you're really just trying to get the long receiving touchdown. And then going over to tight end, we have the elite tight end with Trey McBride. So overall, I absolutely love this team. I think that it's a situation in which you really don't need to be making any moves. 2-for-1 deals are very advantageous for us, however, because you have great options on the waiver wire, such as Jalen Waddle and Jonathan Brooks. I think it's a team where you are strong enough, especially with these options on waivers as quality depth, where we can afford to go out there and trade for the true elite level quarterback. So my move would be I'm trying to trade Davante Adams and Dak Prescott to get an elite level QB here in a 10-team format, which you only start 2 receivers in a flex. But I really appreciate you, and I really hope I was able to help you out. Obviously, there's not much we can do with the team, though. We are already second in the league analyzer. We already have a great squad. But let's go ahead and let's refresh this and get some more of the questions pulled up on the stream here. This next team is going to be one of those other free underdog team reviews coming out from Luca. Team name here is Mason, spelt in an interesting way. This is the 3rd team in the league analyzer, but honestly, it's a pretty even league overall. The team at 1 does appear to have a pretty large gap between the rest of the field, but outside of that, everybody is about comparable. Now, it's a league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, so the wide receiver depth is going to matter that much. And whenever you get the ability to make a 2-for-1 deal to get an upgrade inside the starting lineup, it is more likely than not a move that makes sense for us with this kind of format. And currently looking at the team, we are sitting at 2-4. So with the 2-4 roster, I think that you are highly incentivized to actually start selling off some of these assets that aren't giving you production in the short term. However, I think you're more so looking at somebody that's giving you the value in the long term. Like in my mind, somebody like Christian McCaffrey here, specifically on a 2-4 roster, is somebody that if you can get a considerable amount of value out of in a trade, we maybe should look to do it. Whereas if you're 4-2, obviously we can think a little bit more about the long-term upside. Whereas if you're 2-4, we have to be trying to figure out how we can get to the playoffs. I know we've just said the same thing over and over again 5 times. Just trying to be on record. I think McCaffrey's great, and I think he could be a buy low candidate for some teams. I just don't know if our team is one of those. Looking at Jordan Love, Love could reasonably lead the NFL in passing touchdowns and passing yards going into the future. Obviously looks great. The drawback that you have is the rushing upside isn't necessarily there, but still, we're excited about Jordan Love nonetheless. Going over to what you have at running back, we have Pollard, Swift, Mason. So you do have plenty of running back depth in the short term. So I am fine if you wanted to hold on to McCaffrey, especially when we have Jordan Love. I'm sorry, when we have Jordan Mason. Obviously, we have Jordan Love as well, but still. But I still think that if you could potentially, like on a 2-4 team, go over to one of the teams that is currently sitting at 4-2 and go, hey, I'll give you McCaffrey and I'll give you Puka Nacua. I would need Jahmyr Gibbs. And just really put ourselves in a position in which we have a better shot to contend here in the long term by winning games right now. Going over to wide receiver, kind of the same situation, right? Where here with Puka Nacua, I think on a 4-2 team, he could be a very interesting buy low candidate. But for us, it probably makes sense for us to actually go through and see if we can get some value out of Puka. Now, with that being said, we just have a ridiculous amount of depth at wide receiver. The options on the waiver wire in this league are extremely limited. But if we were going through and selling Puka, or if we were going through and selling McCaffrey, obviously we are not wanting a wide receiver in return. What we need in return is we need a running back, because we already have so many startable receivers here. It's going to be very difficult to choose which guy we want. And also with these league settings where it's only a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, if you could consolidate the wide receiver position by just making some 2-for-1 deals where we sell Dell and Ladd and just get a wide receiver that you're excited to start a little bit more, I think that could be a viable play as well. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope that I was able to help you out in some way here. Really hope you're able to get something from this. And as always, if there's anything else I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. But thank you again, and really do appreciate you. Now let's move this over to Redemption. Says, just need some clarity on the flex and tight ends. If Mar plays versus the Chargers, he's a must start, right? Yes, he is a must start, but it's difficult to know that he'll be playing right now. I think you plan on going Lamb and Deontay. Tight end, we plan on going with Kraft. And then for the flex, if Harrison is good to go, we are going to go Harrison. If he is not, then at that point, I think you go with Amari, but we don't even know if Amari's for sure playing this game yet. So for the flex spot, it's going to be difficult. These are pretty much the 3 players that we are choosing between. Harrison, Amari, and Achane, and we just need to get a little bit more information out of them. But if we get confirmation before Sunday that Harrison will be playing on Monday night, then we roll with Harrison. Now, Tide Chicks, God Diggs, has been out here in so many streams supporting. You are the perfect example of why we went through and why we set this up, my guy. I don't know if we told you that we were going to do this previously, but now whenever I see someone like you in the stream that's always out here dropping ridiculous donos, we can go through and we can accredit you with free stuff on this site. So thank you again so much for being a member of the site. Thank you for always hanging out with us in these live streams. Thank you for being such a massive supporter. I'm going to get you a free team review. We're going to confirm and send that over. Okay, that has been sent. I'm going to get you a free trade question. And we are going to get you sent over a free start set question as well. Really do appreciate you supporting the stream so damn much, my guy. And again, like I said, please email me if you have not done so already. I think we said this in the last team review and I didn't hear from you, but if you are in the United States and you want a free shirt or a free hat or something, we're about to send out a bunch of shirts and hats to all the mother flockers on the site. Maybe you're already a mother flocker and you're going to get a free one, but just shoot me an email and I'd be super happy to hook you up with some free merch as well. I really do appreciate you, my guy. But anyway, saying, hey Mason, it's been a while. Just traded Javonte Bigsby for Amari. Phenomenal deal. Currently 5-1, but might fall to 5-2 this week without Lamb and facing the number 2 team. Dear God, I just realized on Redemption's team, we went through and we submitted the lineup with Lamb. So never mind. Let's change this. We go with Deontay and Amari, and then they're in the, God, I completely blanked that Lamb was on by. And then for the flex, we are choosing between Harrison and Achane Redemption. Ooh, that is a tough scene. I'm sorry that we botched you like that. But anyway, let's get back to this question for Ty Chick Scott Diggs. Anyway, should we be looking to make any moves? Well, first thing I want to point out, I know we've said this a couple different times, that we are looking at the number 1 and the number 2 team in the league analyzer being by far and away the best teams in this league. And it's not even remotely close to the rest of the league. Like really, this is going to be the only team that we actually have to compete against. And yeah, we're both 5-1 here as well. What's crazy is the league analyzer has this league so damn accurate. 5-1, 5-1, 5-1, 4-2 for the top 4 teams. But anyway, pulling up our squad. I know you've already heard me say this 1,000 times, but this is a 10-team league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So the waiver wire options should be pretty damn strong. Not only should the waiver options be pretty strong, But at the same time, we are highly incentivized to go through and get improvements inside the starting lineup with 2-for-1 deals where we're able to. Now, looking at what we have at quarterback, we are currently rolling with Josh Allen. Obviously, if we have Allen, we are able to start him every single week, regardless of the matchup. You have a bunch of rushing upside here with Allen and maybe a little bit more consistency as a passer as well, now that you actually have Amari Cooper coming over, so you're not stuck with a really garbage wide receiver room. So Allen, super strong. I mean, I'm honestly kind of surprised that we are 5-1 with the fact that he has been up and down. But going over to running back, it looks like in the long term here, we should expect that both Walker and Achane are running back ones. Now, obviously, in the short term, Achane's maybe a little bit more disappointing, but not a big deal because this team is one where we are pretty much guaranteed that fantasy football playoff spot, so we're good. Chase Brown looks like he's possibly taking over as the starting running back in Cincinnati. Jonathan Brooks has long-term upside here. Dowdle, quality depth piece. Really strong running back room. Maybe it's going to struggle just a bit here in the short term, but we shouldn't be thinking short term with this. Instead, we should be just thinking about the fantasy football playoffs. And with that being said, if we can find the team that has McCaffrey, if the team with McCaffrey is sitting with a losing record, maybe we could pick up McCaffrey on the cheap. This team with McCaffrey is 0-6. So if we could potentially send them some running backs that could help them out right now and some wide receiver production where their wide receiver 2 is Xavier Worthy. Like if you could send them maybe like Chase Brown, Brian Thomas, or Chase Brown, Amari Cooper, or Rico Dowdle, Amari Cooper, really any combination of those running backs, wide receivers, and pick up another running back that has a crazy high ceiling for the fantasy football playoffs, obviously that is an absolute no-brainer. Now, going over to what we have at wide receiver, we currently have the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. We have the wide receiver 2 in fantasy as well. The wide receiver depth won't matter too much here, knowing it's a league in which you only start 2 receivers in a flex. So when we're sitting here, I mean, Deontay Johnson looks like a must-start name. Brian Thomas is a crusher. I mean, Amari Cooper's a crusher. Here, what I could say is it'd make a lot of sense for us to send one of these depth receivers either with that other running back to go and see if we can pick up a Christian McCaffrey level player to give up the upside specifically for the fantasy football playoffs. Or if you wanted to go through and if you wanted to potentially send like Amari Cooper and Jake Ferguson and pick up an elite tight end such as Travis Kelce, specifically on a roster in which we are highly incentivized to build for weeks 15, 16, 17, I think we would look to do that as well. So really hope that I was able to help you out in some way. The waiver wire here is not great. I mean, maybe we could go through and we could cut Jalen Wright for Ray Davis, Tracy, or actually I would do that. I would cut Jalen Wright probably for Benson. Because if you were to have a James Conner injury, I think Trey Benson's maybe the only guy on that waiver wire that could actually hit your lineup with how good this team is. And then, yeah, I think you could look to do one of two things. Trade for McCaffrey if that 0-6 team's willing. There's always the chance, though, that the 0-6 team's just completely checked out of the league, right? Or we can maybe trade a wide receiver depth piece with a tight end and go get the true elite level tight end such as Kelce. But I really do appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out in some way. And again, please let me know if you have any issues redeeming those free team review, start sit, or trade vouchers that I sent your way. It should make it completely free for you on the site to be able to take advantage of that. And also, I'm trying to think if there's anything else with it. They don't have like an expiration date. So say you go, Mason, I just got a team review. I don't want to use that anytime soon. You can save it for like week 12, whenever you want to use it. So no rush at all. But thank you again for always hanging out with us in the live stream. Thank you for the support and really hope I was able to help you out in some way, but clearly we were just dominant here anyway. Now, Torito says, will leave me with Dobbins and Chuba Hubbard as my starting running backs, but very good receivers with depth. What are your thoughts? Running back Gibbs to Tyreek. Slight downgrade in the short term, upgrade in the long term. I think we can do it. Jonathan Brooks to DJ Moore, upgrade. So, yeah, I think you can go ahead and you can swing this to the Tyreek Hill side in terms of the value on it. Now, of course, if you're saying that it's going to leave us pretty thin at running back, then maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I think the value lies on the Tyreek Hill side of this trade. Now, Connor coming out with a start set question. This is a spot where we are needing a flex. So obviously, Jonathan Brooks will not be playing this week. With Brooks not playing, it does appear that Chuba Hubbard is just right in line to see yet again a 20-touch game and in an environment where it should be an extremely high-scoring contest against the Commanders. So I think you just go ahead and you lock in Chuba Hubbard, even over Bucky Irving with no Rachaad White, potentially even over Chase Brown taking over the backfields. Now, obviously, once Brooks does come back in, then maybe at that point we are going to have to reevaluate, but it should be no worry about Brooks this week. Now, 50 caliber Cat says 2-4, JT likely out, Etienne a bust. Is it time to panic and down tier? Hate to lose Lamb, but the running backs hurt right now. Running back, we can't rely on the Jags RBs. We have no idea what to expect from that offense, no idea what to expect from that split. Right now, it looks like it could be a 3-man running back by committee where nobody's exciting. JT is injured. We have Kareem Hunt as a depth piece. So this week, we would be starting Kareem Hunt as well as Alexander Madison, Tank Bigsby. So, yes, I think it does suck going from Lamb to Bijan. Clearly, you'd rather have Lamb over Bijan rest of season. But if you're getting Bowers with no Davante Adams, it does put you in a situation in which you are in a really comfortable spot with the elite tight end and having some running back production to get through. Now, Redemption says wide receivers running backs are Lamb, Deontay, Amari, and Bijan. 1-5 currently. We have the Atlanta and Miami handcuffs, Tyler and Raheem. So 1-5 team, I agree. We need to be looking to sell Harrison in a spot where Harrison probably gives you more long-term upside than short-term production. Now, with that being said, going from Harrison to Jacobs, I think maybe in some leagues you could squeeze out a little bit more value. But for me, I do see Jacobs as a 3-down running back, kind of regardless of the offense. I think he'd be viable, but especially in an offense that we expect to be one of the best in the league. I think Jacobs can be a low-end RB1 here in fantasy. So I'm going to go ahead. I will take the Jacobs worthy side on a team that's 1-5 and needs some points right this second. But let me move over and answer some of the free questions that we have in the live chat. So please, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Would be happy to try to get to as many as we possibly can. Jacob says Saquon and Waddle or Kupp and Cook. I might rather probably have Saquon and Waddle. For me personally, I think that Tua does come back. I think Waddle goes to being a high-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy. So Saquon's the best player in the deal. Kupp, you are having some inherent injury risk, even if Kupp does look to be a top 10 wide receiver rest of season. I think Saquon's probably the best deal there. Ben says, what should we do with DeAndre Swift? I actually sent a message in the Flock League saying that DeAndre Swift was on the block. I have DeAndre Swift in the Flock League, just in case you don't know. I made a joke saying, he's on bye week and I didn't approve his pay time off. So he's in the doghouse, blah, blah, blah. But the reality, the reason I'm looking to sell DeAndre Swift, obviously I think I can get a pretty decent price with how damn good he has been. We've had 3 straight games over 20 points. And if you look at the Bears' schedule going into the future, it is brutal. Going through and looking at DeAndre Swift. Coming out of the bye, we get the Commanders game, looks good. But after the Commanders, then we get the Cardinals, Patriots. The next 3 weeks are going to be fine for Swift. So maybe you don't need to sell Swift right now. But then after that, you go Packers, tough matchup. Vikings, horrible matchup. Lions, horrible matchup for a running back. Niners, horrible matchup for a running back. Vikings, horrible matchup for a running back. And Lions, horrible matchup for a running back. So it is a tough spot with Swift down the stretch. Good news is coming out of the bye immediately, it's not going to be super tough. So if you wanted to hold on to Swift in the short term, I think it is something you can't look to do. But let's move this over. Eddie says, hey, Mason, did you drop the Niners defense in the Flock League? I have them, and I'm not sure if I should start streaming. I would love y'all's opinion on this because this is something that I've actually been thinking about, and I completely understand where you're coming from because if we are looking at schedules, it is a tough spot in the league. Let's go ahead and let's pull this up. Okay. Because if you look at the Niners defense, which I'm currently holding on to still. Ooh, wrong button. God, Sleeper's too much, to be honest. Like Sleeper's trying to do too much. Like anything you click takes you somewhere else. The Niners have been the 4th best defense this season. They've been phenomenal. But looking over the next few weeks, Chiefs, this week, horrible matchup. Cowboys, whatever matchup. Then you have a bye. Coming out of the bye, you have Tampa, Seattle, Green Bay, Buffalo, Chicago, the Rams, Miami with Tua, and then the Lions. So this has been a great defense. Obviously, the majority of the points scored were back in week 4 against the Pats. But what are y'all thinking in terms of streaming options versus the Niners? Like, are the Niners that much better going into the future than a streaming defense? Like, I did not really prioritize picking up DSTs off of waivers here. Looking at the highest projections that you have this week. The Jags obviously have been an absolute garbage defense, but they are going up against Drake May in London. The Colts have been a whatever defense, but they're going up against Miami with no Tua. The Miami defense is going up against A-Rich. The Baltimore defense, obviously Baltimore's historically a decent defensive option, but you know what? The Baltimore defense after this week. This is something that's interesting to think through. Because with the Baltimore defense after this week, week 8 and week 9, they're going up against the Browns and the Broncos. So the Baltimore defense could actually be a top defensive option in week 7 and 8. And how much worse do they project out to be than the Niners this week? Right now, they're projected 6 points. Sleeper's projecting the Niners for, I don't know how many. What do y'all think? Would you drop the Niners defense for the Ravens defense, even if the Ravens defense hasn't been as good? Where you swap this week, it's not great swapping to the Tampa matchup, but you're going off the Chiefs matchup. So it goes from tough matchup to tough matchup. But then you get to go up against Deshaun Watson or Jameis Winston with the Browns and then Bo Nix. I think we are going to do this. We can reconsider to just pivot over to the Jags, where the Jags obviously have a great matchup against New England, but then they're the immediate drop the week after. The Colts, we get a good matchup this week against Miami with no Tua, but then they're an immediate drop after. Colts haven't had a sack in 2 weeks either. Or at least with Baltimore, Baltimore, 2 sacks, 5 sacks, 3 sacks, 3 sacks, 3 sacks, 3 sacks. So you're generating pressures. I'm going to drop the Niners defense, and I'm going to pick up the Ravens defense. I don't think it's that much better for this week, but I think maybe it's a little bit better for the long term here. Okay. Seeing if we have any other questions in the live chat. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Dynamite says, would you guys drop Downs for Demario Douglas or hold? I would hold. Obviously, we are expecting Josh Downs to be much worse with Anthony Richardson coming in, where the passing volume shouldn't be here. But still, at the same time, Downs will be a player that's has already given you the production, and it's not like the New England offense looks to be elite. Braden says Amari or Ayuk rest of season. Both receivers have been horrible this year, but at least with Amari, you see a clear path to be a difference-making option. At least with Amari, you go over to Buffalo. This could be a very different situation than what you have with Ayuk, who's just kind of stuck as is. The only thing that's changed here in San Francisco is Ricky Pearsall's gotten healthy, which I don't think helps Ayuk at all. Will says Brian Thomas Jr. and Juju for Olave. I'd probably rather have Thomas over Olave right now with the Carr and Olave injuries. I think Olave is definitely an interesting buy low candidate. Do I want to trade Brian Thomas Jr. plus for Olave? Probably not. Okay. Sean says Bub memes, Judy, Worthy, DeMario, or Juju. I would go with Worthy over Bub means. I would go Worthy. Paid Actor says, when is Pacheco coming back? I wish I knew when Pacheco was coming back, but to be completely honest with you, I have absolutely no idea. Legitimately, zero clue. I think that there's a chance that Pacheco doesn't come back this year. There's a chance that Pacheco comes back in week 16 to just ramp up for the NFL playoffs, and it doesn't help us in fantasy. But let me move over and answer some more of the questions that we have on the site. Obviously, if you wanted to get a guaranteed answer, you could always go over to flockfantasy.com, or you can just hit that link that we have in the live chat that says ask a question here. If you go over and go to flockfantasy.com, you can hit the button in the top right corner that says expert advice. There you hit expert advice, and you can actually submit a team review, trade question, start sit question, or a super message. And if you wanted that team review, what I would recommend doing is actually taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, which you can find that link in the live chat here as well, you'll get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, you'll be getting a free Bo Nix pick for tonight's game, more than less than half a total yard against the Saints. And you'll get a free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single night. Just make sure that you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to hook you up with a free team review voucher. But let's move this over to our next question here. This next one coming over from Good Team Cruel League. I believe that's the team name. This is currently an 8-team league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So 8-team league where you only start 2 receivers and a flex. The wide receiver depth does not matter in the slightest. Depth does not matter at all. Every trade we make is a is a 2-for-1 deal trying to get an improvement inside the starting lineup. This is one of those free Underdog team reviews, so thank you so much for taking advantage of the promo, my friend. Going to be super excited to check this out. And to be honest with you, I already know what we are going to say. Here's the answer to this team review. Great team. We don't change anything. I have no idea how you built this. I can tell you right now, and I'm very sorry to say that. I'm very sorry I'm not going to be able to help you out much. But the thing is, we look at this team in the league analyzer. You are by far and away the best team in the league. Looking at the positional rankings, we have the best quarterback room, the best running back room, the third best wide receiver room, and the second best tight end room. So realistically speaking, I have no idea what we can do with this squad. Going ahead and pulling it up, quarterback, we have Jalen Hurts. So you have a QB already through his bye that you're able to start every single week, regardless of matchup. I think with that in mind, I personally wouldn't roster the backup quarterback. I have Purdy in the flock league, but I don't think Purdy's that different than like Cousins, Goff, Darnold, Geno. You're never starting Purdy over Jalen Hurts here either. So I would drop Brock Purdy. I would pick up a player that I think actually has the upside if things continue in the right direction to make a difference inside your starting lineup. So what I would look to do is I'd actually drop Purdy and pick up either Bucky Irving or Rachaad White. Going over to running back, we are currently sitting with 2 top 5 running backs in fantasy. We have Saquon Barkley, the RB1 overall. We have Alvin Kamara, and we have McCaffrey for the long-term upside. We have Brooks for the long-term upside, and we have depth right now with, say, Rico Dowdle and Nick Chubb. So overall, this is a phenomenal running back room. Going over to what we have at wide receiver, we are currently sitting with CeeDee Lamb. I mean, when we have Lamb, we're able to start him every single week, regardless of the matchup here. Really no hesitation whatsoever. Wide receiver 1 in fantasy, Harrison, Garrett Wilson. A solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 combo. It's a league where wide receiver depth doesn't matter too much, but we're not rostering a ton of receivers here. So it's not like an easy spot to say like, oh, okay, well, let's go ahead and let's take Amari and send him with another running back to get an RB upgrade. It's like, now we only have 5 receivers. Now I will say, of course, with this team, if you had the ability to go through and consolidate pieces and make a 2-for-1 deal just to get an improvement inside the starting lineup, like if you could go ahead and still say JSN and Marvin Harrison Jr. and get to a receiver like Chris Godwin, somebody that you're a little more excited about long-term, I think that we could look to do that and just pick up either Keenan Allen or Jordan Addison for completely free off the waiver wire. And then going over to tight end, we have McBride and Evan Ingram. So another thing that you could look to do is if you wanted to potentially sell, say, Amari Cooper and Trey McBride and try to go get Travis Kelce, specifically in a 2 wide receiver 1 flex format where the wide receiver depth doesn't matter. I think it could be interesting. The Amari deal is like, you don't need to do it. But honestly, if you could do that with JSN and then just pick up Jordan Addison right after, I think we for sure would. But I mean, overall, you have a phenomenal team here. It's by far and away the best team in the league. I wish I had more for you. I wish I could help you out better than this. But in reality, it's going to be very difficult to make any moves with this team. I think you're kind of just cruising as is. Now, moving over to our next question. It's from Local. It says, my first time doing NFL fantasy. I need help. See if there's anybody we should pick up from the free agents. I'm very sorry I can't see your free agents with a start-sit question. I will say, I think at running back 2 or you have running back 1, whoever it is, Montgomery is a phenomenal start even in a tough matchup here going up against the Vikes. And then going over to the flex, I think more likely than not, we are going to be taking Chase Brown, who looks like he has taken over this backfield, specifically in Cincinnati. This should be an elite offense as well. So really the only thing that I think we need to point out with this team is there is a shot that TJ Hawkinson plays this week, but there's also a good shot that TJ Hawkinson misses. And if TJ Hawkinson does miss, then in that case, I'm wanting to go through and I'm wanting to pick up a tight end off the waiver wire for us to play, and you drop Demario Douglas to pick up that tight end. Now, DFOM coming out with one of those free Underdog team reviews. This is Derek's definitive team. This is the 8th team in the league analyzer. It's a 12-team format, so the options on waivers should maybe be a little bit worse here. Derek, if you are in this live stream, can you please let me know? Because I do have some questions to ask you. Going through and looking at every team here, every team's rostering 2 to 3 quarterbacks. So, Derek, can you please let me know, is this a super flex league? I'm assuming it's a super flex league with the only quarterbacks available on the waiver wire being really just Will Levis. So I'm going to be operating under the assumption that this is a super flex format. And with this being a super flex league, we have Mahomes, Stafford, May. I think May's a great QB3 to have. Derek in here says, yes, it is perfect. Just wanted to confirm. And Derek, could you let me know all the starting lineup requirements just to make sure I'm 100% on the same page with you for this review? But anyway, if we're looking at Mahomes, we can say, low end QB1, Stafford, probably low end QB2 based off the limited rushing upside. So it is a questionable quarterback room for a super flex format. Now, with that being said, obviously Drake May does give us some upside here. So you're really hoping that May comes out and maybe starts running the ball a little bit more than what we had seen from some of these other guys. So May could be played in the super flex spot going into the future. That is the hope. By no means a guarantee. I probably would start Stafford over May this week, even with May having a phenomenal matchup. Now going over to what we have at running back. We have Bijan Robinson, James Conner. So in my mind, a solid RB1, solid RB2 in a 12-team format. We have Chase Brown here as well, taking over in Cincinnati. Looking at what we have on the waiver wire for running back, options that aren't super, super exciting. So I think we are going to go through and we are probably just chilling here at RB. And this is a 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 tight end, and 1 super flex. So this is a league in which wide receiver depth does not matter in the slightest. Like, I honestly, if you can only start 2 wide receivers here, it is an absolute no-brainer where if you have a wide receiver pop off, where we could potentially sell a receiver with Matthew Stafford to go and get an upgrade inside the starting lineup, we 100% want to do just that. Now, with that being said, I'm obviously assuming that Hollywood Brown is on our IR. If Hollywood is not on the IR, then we go ahead and we cut him, and we can't find a better option off the waiver wire with Wan'Dale Robinson or Jerry Jeudy. But I'm assuming he's on the IR. We're not going to be able to make that move. But I know at tight end, we are starting Parkinson just this week because we're dealing with the Ferguson bye week, and Hawkinson probably not going to be back this week. But once we are good at tight end and we get Ferguson coming out of the bye, when we drop Parkinson, I don't want to be tempted with any of the wide receivers. Unless maybe like you have Keon Coleman dropping a 30 bomb and all of a sudden actually showing us, oh no, I am a wide receiver 2 in Buffalo here. Then maybe at that point you could go through and you could pick up a receiver. Or if Jameis comes in and all of a sudden Jerry Jeudy is just getting flooded with intended air yards, then maybe at that point we could drop Parkinson and pick up a wide receiver. I think what I would actually do is after this week, if you actually have Will Levis out there on waivers, I would probably drop Parkinson and pick up Levis. While yes, rostering 4 quarterbacks obviously is a little bit crazy. What's crazy is this is a super flex league in which you can only start 2 wide receivers at the very most. So quarterback is going to make up such a high percentage of our starting lineup output every single week that I would want to just have the additional quarterback with upside here and put ourselves in a position where if we get a spike week from Stafford, I think you could get a decent amount of trade value out of these guys. It's a very well-balanced roster. Another thing that you could look to do is if we get a Rome Odunze breakout and Tua does come back in, then at that point we could look to sell somebody like a Jalen Waddle once his value has returned and a quarterback to go get a QB upgrade. But honestly, as this team sits here, there aren't any very clear trades that I think we want to be making. The thing is, while yes, this is a super flex league, it's almost it's a super flex league where you hear that, like, yes, quarterbacks get a premium placed on it, But if you don't have like an additional flex where you can still start 3 receivers weekly alongside the 2 quarterbacks, it's like a super flex league with an added on QB premium because wide receiver depth just doesn't matter at all. But I really do appreciate you, and I really hope that I was able to help you out in some way. The main thing is I want to get as good as possible here at QB with your league settings. And for that, I think we probably pick up Levis if he's free after this week, drop Parkinson. And then when we have a wide receiver breakout, we possibly trade the hot QB with a wide receiver to go get a stud quarterback in a 2-for-1 deal if possible. But thank you again. I really do appreciate you. And I really hope I was able to help you out in some way here. Now, going over to what we have with our next question. This is I Love Bijan. Says, hey, Mason, been with you as my fantasy guy for 2 years now. Back with another team review. Any way we can go about a guy like Malik Neighbors or Jamar Chase? I'm looking to trade for one of them, but any help is much appreciated. I really appreciate you stopping by the live stream, and let me definitely hook you up with, if you're in this, I'm not even going to ask you if you want to start sit or a trade question. Let me give you both a free start sit question and a trade question. We just sent you, I believe, the free trade question. Let me send you a free start sit question voucher as well. Thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel here, my friend. But anyway, looking at this is a 10-team league. We're going to start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. This is Munches Sucks. So we are the second team in the league analyzer. It's very much a haves and a haves not here with this league. The top 5 teams are great. The bottom 5 teams are absolutely garbage. We are actually only 3-3, which is a little bit surprising, but I guess we are sitting here with the Tyreek Hill disappointing games with no Tua, which going into the future obviously should be much better. But also at quarterback, we are sitting with the elite option with Jalen Hurts already through the bye. Obviously, we are able to start Jalen Hurts every single week regardless, so do not need to roster another quarterback here. Running back, we have 2 top 10 options rest of season with Brees and Bijan. Absolutely no hesitation. I think that you should be really excited about this running back room. Running back depth is very much a liability for us, though, where if we were to get an injury to either RB, we're probably put in a really tough spot. And specifically in a league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, I would opt to have the running back depth over wide receiver depth if possible. Now, going over to what we have at wide receiver, we are currently sitting with extremely strong options, such as Tyreek Hill, Drake London. So we have 2 top receivers. We have DK Metcalf as a quality flex. So the very easy move to make here, well, one, I will say your team's so strong. We're thinking about the fantasy football playoffs more than anything. And with that in mind, the last thing I want to do is go through and like trade away Tyreek Hill. And honestly, Drake London at this point, I think I'd rather just kind of hold on to Drake London instead of pivoting over to one of the other elite receivers like Neighbors. So what I would potentially look to do here is I think I would actually try to consolidate the wide receiver depth pieces if possible. Where if you are able to go through and package together, say like Amari Cooper and DK Metcalf to get to that elite level wide receiver, I think it'd be a no-brainer, but I don't want to be trading away Tyreek Hill or London. I think Tyreek Hill and London fit this team pretty much perfectly. So for me, I think the clear move is DK Metcalf, Amari, go get the best wide receiver possible. Go try to get somebody like Neighbors that way if possible. Obviously, much easier said than done. I think you could very clearly include Dalton Kincaid in one of those trades if it's going to get it done and allow us to bring in the elite level wide receiver. Now, with that being said, obviously much easier said than done there as well. But we have George Kittle, so we are able to start Kittle every single week. We're never really considering Kincaid over him. Going over to the flex, we have phenomenal options. I would drop Keon Coleman and pick up Ladd McConkey right this second. And in terms of the potential moves that we can make, if you were able to sell, say, Amari and Metcalf to tier up and get to a true elite level wide receiver, and we were able to open up another roster spot, I think that would be I think it would be a very strong move for another reason that we were able to pick up An additional running back depth piece that gives you like the premium handcuff appeal, such as Zach Charbonnet here. So plan A is DK Amari, get to the elite level receiver. Plan B is DK Amari Kincaid, get to the elite level wide receiver. Also included in plan A, before we even try doing that, you cut Keon and you pick up Ladd. And then if you are able to get that trade done, then we go ahead and we pick up another running back off the waiver wire, such as Zach Charbonnet, which I think would make a lot of sense. But I think that's all I got for you. Again, thank you so much for being a member of the Flock supporting the channel. I really hope I was able to help you out in some way here, and really hope you're able to get something from this. Now, let's move this over to Scapton says. And also, real quick, I sent you those free the free trade question and the free start sit questions. So if you have any issue with those, please just reach out to me and let me know. But you should be able to ask me those questions for free. Now, looking at this at Scapton says, I can do this trade or the same two for Montgomery. I'd be left with JT Dowdle, Bucky for running back. So running back depth wouldn't be super strong, but honestly, I think the value here for Tyreek Hill is maybe a little bit too much. Specifically, if you are a team that's better than 3-3, if you are a 2-4 roster, where you're a 1-5 roster, the issue is Tyreek's not necessarily an upgrade over like Amari right now with no Tua. But assuming that we are a team where we can think about the upside for the fantasy football playoffs, where we are assuming that Tua is a dramatic upgrade, I think we would go ahead. I think we would make this move. Now, Slayton coming out says Godwin, Mooney for Hill and Miller. Miller's an absolute zero. Mooney's a very small piece. We're 6-0 as well. So this is a great example of a team. Well, I will say, I always love giving this like a little analogy. That like if you're trading like Godwin for Tyreek Hill, you're trading a Porsche for a Ferrari, right? And if you're looking at like a player like Kendre Miller involved in this trade, it's like Kendre Miller's little dice on the mirror that hang down and dangle. It makes no difference whatsoever. Like, you either want the Porsche or you want the Ferrari. We don't care about the dice in the mirror. It's never going to swing a decision for us. And if it does, we're probably making the trade for the wrong reason. But on a 6-0 roster where I personally think that Tua will be back in at some point here in Miami, I think it does make sense for you to go out there and for you to just actually get Tyreek Hill and get the player that could be the wide receiver 1 overall in weeks 15, 16, 17. Specifically on a 6-0 roster. Obviously, if you were in a situation where you're 2-4, then you probably can't afford to make this trade. Now let's go over to Nighthawk says, a big fan, bro. Keep up the work. Other team needs some type of running back, but is stacked with receivers. Okay. Going from Laporta to McBride, big time upgrade. Brian Thomas for Marvin Harrison, big time upgrade. Purdy, about equivalent of a bunch of streaming quarterbacks on your waiver wire. Paying Rico Dowdle to get it done. Absolute no-brainer. We want McBride and Harrison. I mean, I like Purdy and Laporta in the Flock League, and if I could package together, if I can throw Waddle in the slot of Thomas, throw maybe Javonte in the slot of Dowdle, if I get this deal done, it'd be an absolute no-brainer. I'd love it. Now, Trey coming out with a free Underdog team review. Going to be excited to check this out. And I do want to reiterate, of course, if you wanted one of the free Underdog team reviews in the live stream, you can always go through and you can always take advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy with the link in the live chat that says free Bo Nix pick, you're actually going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, you'll be getting a free Bo Nix pick for the game tonight and a free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single night as well. All you got to do is make sure that you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to go through and that way I'm able to credit you with that free team review voucher. But let's move this over and go over to this next free Underdog team review, which is Trey W. Limited Hangout. This currently is the number 3 team with the league analyzer. If you look at the analyzer, really it's a close spot between the top 7-ish teams in this league. And then after that, you have a massive teardrop to the teams here at the very bottom. So when we are sitting here at 4-2, I mean, we really like to see it. Quarterback, we have Josh Allen. Obviously, you're able to start Allen every single week. Getting Amari Cooper in this offense maybe gives you a little bit of a better floor when it comes to what we have specifically with the consistency of this passing offense. Going over to what we have with our running back room, we are currently sitting with the combo of Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, Chase Brown, Najee Harris, and Braylon Allen. So we have the top end upside and we have the depth guys here as well. I mean, obviously Dobbins looks like he's turning into an every week starter. I think it's maybe a little bit too early to call him an RB1. Chase Brown looks like he's turning into an every week starter. I think maybe it's a little bit too early to call him RB1, but overall, I mean, phenomenal situation to be at with the running back room. Going over to wide receiver, we have Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Amari Cooper. It's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format where the wide receiver depth's not going to matter a ton here. So realistically speaking, what the hell can I tell you to do? I think that this is a team that is situated pretty much exactly how I would want it, specifically with these league settings. We're 4-2. The team seems like it's getting better as time goes on. So trying to think about what we can realistically do here. I don't know. I mean, the best waiver wire options, you have DeAndre Hopkins in my mind as the best option with the hope that he ends up getting dealt. Really, the only thing that we can do is trade one of the tight ends. But the issue is the Dallas Cowboys coming out of such a tough performance against the Detroit Lions that I don't think you're in a situation in which we want to be trading away Jake Ferguson right now. We definitely don't want to trade away Dalton Kincaid this week with Ferguson on bye. Then it'll put us in an awkward spot with our construction. So here's what I think I would look to do. If you could potentially wait a week, and if we get a strong performance from Dalton Kincaid, and you're able to package together Dalton Kincaid and a player like, say, Najee Harris, and pivot over to a running back that you're more excited about the upside for, then I think we can go ahead and we can look to make that move. Now, of course, this is much easier said than done. Of course, I don't think we can look to do it right now as we are dealing with the Jake Ferguson bye. But in the long term, I think it's something that you can do. But I wish I had more for you. I think it's a great team. We're near the top of the league in the league analyzer. We are 4-2. I like the construction given the league format that we have as well. So I really do appreciate you. And I really hope I was able to help you out in some way. Thank you for using that Underdog promo, though. Now, Aussie Lee says, hey, Mason, we have Sutton and Javonte Williams playing tonight. Who would you start sit? So my running backs, we're going to start Kyron and Javonte here at RB this week. Wide receiver, we are most likely going to be going with Brian Thomas, Drake London. For the flex, we're going to go DK Metcalf, and then tight end Tucker Kraft. So if it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I think you probably bench Sutton. But you could start Javonte. Javonte versus Najee is close. I think Javonte is a good matchup, though. I mean, this is like one of the very few games where the Denver Broncos will be favored. Now, moving over to our next question with Miguel, says trade Jaden for Amari or Davante straight up. Hell no. I want to include Chuba, but the app doesn't budge. I think you go ahead and you hold on to Jaden Daniels. I'm assuming we have another top end quarterback. We have Josh Allen here as well. It sucks, but I mean, if you are wanting to make a trade, if you're selling Jaden Daniels, instead of just getting somebody like Amari Cooper in, what I would prefer doing is seeing if we can pivot over to like a true elite name. Like if we can get to CeeDee Lamb and on our end, we include a receiver. Like I'm going to go to Zay Flowers, Jaden Daniels for Lamb, or maybe like Josh Allen, Zay Flowers for Lamb. I think that's more so the deal that I'm looking for if we were selling an elite QB. But Grant coming out with a question says, we need some help. My guy can't decide the lineup this week. Watch him from Scotland and rooting for you in the Flock League. Love to hear that. Thank you so much. Here looking at running back, we're going to go ahead. Obviously, Kyron is a must-start player as well as Saquon Barkley. We already know that. Wide receiver, we have no Lamb. If Cup plays, Cup is going to get jammed in. So is Jaden Reed. And then down here in the flex, we are really looking at Chase Brown, Aaron Jones as the two options. If Aaron Jones is good to go, we'll play him. I was expecting him to miss, but we actually did get word that Aaron Jones was at practice. So maybe you have a little bit more hope with Jones here. But obviously, if he doesn't play, then at that point, we can pivot over to Chase Brown, who looks like he is the starting guy in one of the league's best offenses. Now, Benji, always happy to see us, says, would you trade Jordan Mason and McBride for Terry and Tucker Kraft in a non-PPR format? Non-PPR format, I'm going to be giving the bump up to Jordan Mason and going to be giving a knock to Terry McLaurin. So honestly, no, I completely understand the thought process here, but I don't think you can make this move. I think you just kind of have to hold on to Jordan Mason. And if CMC comes back in, we just take the L at that point. Okay. Now, Vice coming out with a trade question. This is Hunt versus Nico Collins. I'd rather have Nico Collins. I think you have a lot more long-term upside. The only hesitation that I'd have with this is if you were like 0-6 or if you're 1-5 where you're saying Mason, the long-term upside doesn't matter at all. I just need points in right now. Then obviously maybe that's a different scenario. But if we're talking in a vacuum, we go with Nico Collins. Now, new guard Trey coming out with the trade question. This is Lamb, Moss for Tyreek and Chase Brown. Moss to Chase Brown, clear upgrade. Lamb to Tyreek, clear downgrade. If we knew 100% that, yes, you are going to be getting Tua back in this offense next week. If that news broke right now, then I actually think, yeah, we go ahead and we actually make this deal and we go get Tyreek Hill and the upgrade at running back. But honestly, I think that you would be taking on probably a little bit too much risk if you were to make this move, where the Lamb side is the guarantee. If you were to tell me, Mason, 100%, you're going to get 70. We know it's a guarantee. You'll have 75+% of the snaps for Chase Brown in Cincinnati going into the future. I think you make a strong argument for the Chase Brown side, or if you knew for a 100% fact that Tyreek Hill would be the guy, make a strong argument for Tyreek. I think you're just taking on too much risk. I know we keep on reiterating, but the big ticket says, I have Taylor hurt. Should I pick up Goodson or Sermon? I'd pick up Goodson, but honestly, I'd rather not start any running back here with A-Rich. I think A-Rich kind of turns into the default RB when this team wants to run the ball with no Jonathan Taylor. Sermon's banged up as well. Now, Peter coming out with a start-sit question. Here at quarterback, we're going to be going A-Rich over Goff with Goff playing the Vikings. Running back, we're going to go Chuba Hubbard with the 3-down workload with no Brooks. Tight end, there's no reason for us to be rostering this many guys. I'm assuming maybe you're including the waiver wire options. We will go with Kincaid. And then down in the flex spot, I absolutely hate to say this, but we are going to take Drake London. It is a crazy team for us to be benching. I mean, for us to be benching Brian Robinson in a great matchup here against the Carolina Panthers. But honestly, I don't know if you can get away from it. Team's just too damn good here, to be honest. Now, Aaron coming out with a trade question. First thing I will say is I absolutely hate trades where we are sending 5 players for 5 players. I don't see the point really in ever going through and swapping half of our team for half of your team. Looking at this as well, Rashad Bateman holds 0 value. He's pretty much he's barely worth the roster spot. There's no world where Bateman ever swings me on this. So looking at this, going from Cooper Kupp to Jahmyr Gibbs, slight upgrade. Going from Christian Kirk to Rachaad White and Devin Singletary, slight. Okay, yeah, the Jahmyr Gibbs side wins this. The Gibbs side is the best player. And at the same time, like Christian Kirk with Evan Ingram coming back in just may not be viable anymore. So honestly, I think it's a difficult spot for you to go through and for you to take White and ETN. Because they have looked so bad, but I mean, it's not like Mostert, Bateman, Madison look great. Now, Eve Small coming out says, I am a total loss for my receivers. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you. I will say good news is we have Barkley and Jacobs. So even if our wide receivers are crap, we're still good. We're going to go with Pickens and Worthy. We're going to hope for the big play for Worthy. And then for the flex, we have Mixon in a flex spot as well. If Singletary were to miss, you go Tracy, but it sounds like Singletary is going to be playing. So I actually think you're probably going to go ahead and you're going to play Juju Smith-Schuster. Right now, the Browns have the second lowest implied team total in the NFL this week. So I think in general, it's a good rule to just be avoiding this Browns offense where we can. So I think we bench Jerry Jeudy. Now let's hit next question. And let's go ahead and let's refresh this so we can get some more questions up here. And of course, I do want to reiterate, if you ever wanted to ask any questions over on flockfantasy.com, you can always hit the link in the live chat that says ask a question here. Get yourself a guaranteed answer in any live stream. You can always also just go to the site and hit the expert advice button in the top right corner. There you can get a team review, trade question, start sit question, or a super message, whatever you are wanting. I will recommend if you wanted that team review, however, to take advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, you're going to be getting a free Bo Nix pick, more than less than half a total yard. And you will be getting a free team review in the live stream that we're doing every single night. Just make sure that you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to go through and credit you with that free team review voucher. But let's move this over. Our next question is going to be a start sit question for Knack Force has just traded Kittle for Kincaid and Chase Brown. I like picking up Chase Brown. Obviously, I think Kittle to Kincaid at this point is a downgrade, but we have the stack with Allen. The running back, we're rolling with Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, locked and loaded. Wide receiver, we're going to go with Drake London, Jaden Reed as must start names. This is a phenomenal team. Kincaid at tight end. And then the flex spots, Jacobs with a 3-down workload. And then for our final flex, it does get a little bit iffy. Between Brian Thomas and Davante Adams, I think it's up to you. We probably go with Davante Adams. But honestly, I think that we could pivot over to Brian Thomas as well, if you really wanted to. Now, moving this over to our next question. This coming out from Ozzy says, just want to know if I made the right choice. I feel pretty strong about the Allen side, but we have my doubts. Lamar to Allen, downgrade. Gibbs to Taylor, lateral move. Waddle to cut, massive upgrade. I think that this is an example of the Amari deal getting maybe Josh Allen a little bit more interest in terms of the consistency that we should have going into the future. So yeah, I think we can go ahead and we can take Allen. Now, Peter coming out says 10-team PPR flex. Algier, Moss, Downs, Ridley. Also, Sutton and Watson are on waivers. I will play probably Downs. I think we go Josh Downs. I'm not excited about it at all because obviously the passing volume will dramatically come down here going from Joe Flacco to Anthony Richardson. But with that being said as well, I mean, it's not like we can expect a ton of passing volume to be here in Denver. So we can go, oh yeah, the passing volume is going to be bad in Indianapolis. Let's play Cortland Sutton. So I just go Josh Downs. Like I said, I'm definitely worried, but he's had 20 points every week so far this year. Now let's move this over to our next question. This was going to be coming up from HG Keep Going. It says, hey Mason, I need help on this deal. Terry McLaurin to Brock Bowers, massive upgrade. Tucker Kraft to Wan'Dale Robinson, downgrade. But post Davante Adams trade, I think you have to view Brock Bowers as a tier 1 tight ends. Guaranteed volume. Points per game not going to be super different between Bowers and McLaurin. But obviously just getting the points from Bowers at a position that's much harder to come by. So yeah, I think we go ahead and I think we take Bowers. Okay. Now moving this over to our next question here. This one is a big time team review from Brandon. Appreciate you, my guy. Let me go ahead and hook you up with a free trade question. Thank you for supporting the channel. I really hope that we are able to help you out. And I will also say as well, this is an ESPN league, so you should be able to link this with flockfantasy.com. If you're having any issues linking with it, linking with the site, just please send a message in the site issues section of the Discord, which you can find that link in the description of this live stream. If you send a message in that site issues section, one of the developers can go through and they can help you out here. But looking at what we have with the roster, it is a 6-0 team, but we're feeling like we are going to be falling into a hole. So pulling this up, it is a league in which you start one quarterback and you only start 2 receivers and 1 flex. So the wide receiver depth doesn't matter a bunch. I would like to have an elite level quarterback here with how high of a percentage of our lineup they're going to account for weekly. Going over to our quarterback room, we are sitting with Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, as well as Justin Fields. So I know it's a deeper bench than what you're going to have in a lot of other leagues, but I still think we go ahead and we drop Justin Fields now that we are getting word that the guy will be Russell Wilson under center here in Pittsburgh. So yeah, we cut Fields and just roll with Love and Darnold into the future. At running back, we have Kyron as a strong RB1, Aaron Jones, Jacobs, both with RB1 upside as well. Swift and Tolbert as quality depth pieces. One thing that I think you could look to do here in a league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, if it's a 4-point passing touchdown format where possibly we are highly incentivized to build around the long-term upside that you are going to be seeing with quarterback, because they'll make up such a high percentage of our starting lineup output. If it's a 4-point passing touchdown league, we want the rushing quarterbacks. I think we go ahead and I think we possibly package together like DeAndre Swift, who has a really tough schedule down the stretch here in Chicago. And we see if we can sell Swift and say Jordan Love to get over to a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. I think that could be potentially interesting here. Now going over to what we have with our next position, we have Amari Cooper as well as Jaden Reed. So obviously we're sitting with two wide receivers that can get the job done. Am I super excited? Do I think that these are going to be players that are league winners down the stretch? I don't think you can just win your league with these guys alone. But since we are so damn strong at running back, I think we're actually in a very good situation. Wide receiver depth is maybe a little bit limited where we're sitting with Ridley and Tolbert down at the bottom end of the bench. So when we cut Justin Fields, I actually probably would like to pick up the best wide receiver that's available to us. Since this team's linked, I can't see the wide receivers that are available on the waiver wire. Looking at what we have at tight end, we have Jake Ferguson for the long term. So overall, I think that's a really strong team. I think that there are two different things that we could look to do. We could look to potentially sell the depth running back with DeAndre Swift and possibly say Amari Cooper to go get an elite wide receiver. Or I think you can sell the depth running back in Swift with Jordan Love to go get the elite quarterback. But you really, the only guy you'd be looking for in that instance is Lamar, since it's a massive swing. But I really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my friend. Again, thank you so much. And I did accredit you with that free trade question voucher as well. So if you ever have a trade question, please just go ahead and send it to me on the site. Should be free for you, and I would be happy to follow up. But thank you again. I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out. And Shortick says, this is Brandon. There are no good waiver wire options. So just please let me know in the live chat too if you have any other questions of what we were saying. I think it's a great team overall. I mean, we're 6-0 for a reason. Another move you could look to make is if you could sell Swift and go after a running back like Christian McCaffrey that possibly could be an RB1 in the fantasy football playoffs, or go after a receiver like Nico Collins that could be a top 5 option. Just because here you do have the ability with how strong the team is set up for the playoffs to make a move like that. But NPS says, my running backs are Kamara, Hubbard, Ramondre, Gibson, Charbonnet. My receivers are Adams, Kirk, and Lamb. We're trading Kamara for A.J. Brown. I think we hold on to Alvin Kamara here because while at running back we look extremely strong right now, what happens if Jonathan Brooks comes in and Chuba Hubbard's not a super exciting start anymore? So, yeah, I think you honestly just hold on to Kamara. Knowing a wide receiver, you're already extremely strong. But Anthony coming out of the trade question says, not sure if I should do this trade. Scared of losing St. Brown, but I'm 3-3. Mahomes to Allen, upgrade. St. Brown to Bowers, massive downgrade. I would go ahead and not just keep St. Brown. Obviously, Mahomes has been horrendous so far this season, and I do think that there's a big-time difference between Mahomes and Josh Allen going into the future. But at the same time, St. Brown's by far and away the best player with this deal. Now, what I'm going to do, just because we have the game in about 35 minutes or so, is I'm going to make sure that we get through all the start-sit questions and the trade questions right now. And then we're going to go back to the team reviews after we get through all the other ones, as I don't want to miss any of the start-sit questions before the game gets kicked off. But Love Thy Neighbors says, I'm 5-1. What are your thoughts? If they want Chase over Neighbors, would you do it? Feel free to build out trades. Yes, sir. I'm looking at this. Going from Mason and Puka to Kamara. Give me Kamara if you think CMC's back in. Neighbors to Tyreek is a downgrade. We're 5-1, so honestly, I think you may hold on to the Jordan Mason. I agree. We want to sell Jordan Mason if we're 5-1. I think you just need to look for a better deal to do it in. I think this is the deal that you make. here, where we try to send like Jordan Mason and Puka Nacua for Tyreek Hill. Or in a 5-1 team, obviously we can look to hold on to Puka Nacua. If we can go like Brandon Ayuk, Jordan Mason for Tyreek, it's an absolute no-brainer. The first trade you can do, but it is honestly just kind of up to you at that point. I think the first trade's like a whatever type one. Carter coming out with his start sit question. Here we need a running back too. We are going to go ahead. We're going to plug and play Jordan Mason. Sounds like he should be good to go this week. Obviously no McCaffrey yet. And then going down to the flex, I think we are going to be playing between Chase Brown, Devon Achane. It's difficult. Obviously Brown in the much better offense. We are assuming that he is fully taken over from Zach Moss, but we don't know to what extent yet. I think we benched the receivers in favor of them, though. I think we are going to go ahead. I think that we will take Chase Brown in the second flex. Now, Aaron coming out with a start sit question. Here at running back, we are going to go ahead and we're going to play Taylor if he's good to go. If Taylor's not, we go with Alexander Madison if Zamir White misses. But if Taylor's not good to go and Zamir White plays and Rashad White doesn't, then we go Sean Tucker. So obviously a lot up in the air for now. Tight end, Kincaid is the play. And then going over to the flex, we have some garbage players on this team. We're going to go ahead. We're going to play Alexander Madison if you have no Zamir White. Sean Tucker if you have no... Alexander Madison if you have no Zamir White. Sean Tucker if you have no Rashad White. If both those running backs play, then we go ahead and we take Christian Kirk. But obviously, there are a lot of what-ifs with this team right now just because so many of our players are in uncertain backfields. Now, let's move this over to our next question. We are going to get back to you, Gnarly Barley. I promise you, I just want to make sure that we don't miss any of like the time-pressing stuff before the game start. Cooper Voice says, Amari Javante versus Jason Jacobs and Waddle. Javante to Jacobs, massive upgrade. Amari to Waddle, slight downgrade. I think it's a massive downgrade in the short term. Long term, I think maybe Waddle outscores Amari when you get to a back end. But since you get the massive upgrade to Josh Jacobs anyway, I'm just going to go out. I'm going to take the Josh Jacobs side. Now, moving this over to our next question. This was coming out from Joey. This is a trade question where we're sending Wilson and Pittman for Cook and Hawkinson. Wilson to Cook, I think, is an upgrade post Davante Adams trade. James Cook did get in a full practice today. Sounds like James Cook should be healthy and fully good to go. Beyond this, I think we are going to go ahead and say we probably, depending on your team, could go Hawkinson over Pittman. I think you go with the James Cook, TJ Hawkinson side if you think that you need a tight end. Now, we will get back to this question, Rip Scott. I promise you, just trying to get to all the non-team reviews, then we're going to go back to the team reviews. This coming out from Wiz says, get Lamb, Terry, Jacobs for Hall and AJ, and then later get Connor for cheap. We have Jordan Mason and James Cook. Okay. AJ to Lamb, slight upgrade. Hall to Jacobs, big time downgrade. Getting Terry McLaurin, I think it's a fair trade. But to be honest with you, I personally would rather just go ahead and I would rather just roll with AJ and Hall. I think Lamb is the best player in the deal, but I think AJ and Hall are the second and third best options. Okay. But let's move this over to our next question. This next one coming out from Sahil. And Creek Pat. Oh, this is a very interesting. What platform is this? Very interesting screenshot to send. Let me know what platform that is. I've never seen that before. We will get back to your team review, I promise you, though. Sahil says, hey, Mason, start Sutton and trade away Achane and Ayuk for Dobbins and Metcalf. I'd rather have Achane and Ayuk there. And then I would go Sutton over Christian Watson. I'd go Sutton over Watson. Craig says Fantasy Pros. Looks good. We possibly need to go ahead and let me see this again. Looks better than what I thought they had. I definitely prefer what we have here so we can see all the expandable stuff. But looks good. I've never seen that before. Carlos coming out says, would love your opinion on this. I don't know if Kyler would be an upgrade over Baker. 6-point passing touchdown format. You very easily prefer Baker Mayfield over Kyler Murray. 4 points passing touchdown. I think that you are going to go ahead and you are going to take Kyler Murray where we have a little more rushing upside. Now, obviously, with that in mind, I want to be on record saying that Baker Mayfield has been 10,000 times better than Kyler Murray, both from a fantasy and a real life perspective so far this season. But Adams to Bijan is such a massive upgrade that it doesn't matter what you view of Kyler and Baker. I want the Bijan, Juju, Kyler side. I want the Bijan side of this. I think Kyler can be better once we get everybody healthy in Arizona. Obviously, we've dealt with McBride missing time and now Harrison. TBD coming out with a start-sit question. Quarterback, we are going to be going with Stroud versus Baker is very tough. We have them literally back-to-back in our rankings this week. I think can we look at the underdog pick'ems that we have? They're in the same tier, back-to-back rankings. It is very close and up to you. Both don't have the easiest of matchups. You have Baker 250.5 passing yards. 258.5 passing yards, higher, lower. CJ Stroud 257.5. Can y'all spam the chat? Would y'all rather have CJ Stroud or Baker Mayfield this week? Please let me know in the live chat. Are you going to go Baker or Stroud? I just simply do not know. Baker, Stroud, Baker. Looks like everybody's on the Baker side, so we'll go Baker. We have them ranked back-to-back in our rankings. I think it's up to you. Wide receiver, we're going to go ahead and we're going to play Adams and Harrison if he's good to go, but we don't know just yet. Running back, obviously, we go with Montgomery, even if it's a tough matchup for the flex. So if Marvin Harrison plays, we go Marvin Harrison. If not, we go Brandon Ayuk. We're going to have to get the reports on Harrison on Friday and Saturday. What sucks is Harrison plays super late Monday night, so we may not have the clarity by the time you have to make this decision. Now, moving this over to what we have with our next question. Like I said, we will get back to the roster reviews in just 1 second. Just want to make sure that we are getting all the time-sensitive stuff out of the way right now. But it says, how do you view quarterback and wide receiver tight end stacks? When do we start looking ahead to playoff schedules? If you are 6-0, I think you can about now start looking forward to the playoff schedules, just because, I mean, at the end of the day, we have a larger sample where we know what defenses we should be targeting, what defenses we should be avoiding at this point. Like, we know for a fact, hell, you probably don't want to be going up against the Minnesota Vikings defense in the playoffs. And then looking at QB and wide receiver tight end stacks, they're crucial in best ball. I still like them when you're drafting teams in regular redraft formats and dynasty leagues, because you can go through and you can say, oh, okay, I took Jaden Daniels at the beginning of this draft. For Jaden Daniels to maybe smash and really become a top end league winning quarterback, that must mean that Terry McLaurin's going to do well at the same time. So might as well take both of them on the same roster. So I like going after stacks and drafts. I'm not necessarily wanting to go through and trying to trade for the stacks halfway through the season, because the upside that you would have got from the stacks is already probably priced in at that point. Now, moving over to what we have with our next question from B-Dub. This is Mahomes, Walker, likely. Kraft, Amari, Achane. Okay, so looking at this, Mahomes, not much better than a streaming quarterback at this point. Walker to Achane, clear downgrade. Likely to, doesn't even move the needle, not worth the roster spot. So are you wanting to trade Kenneth Walker and Mahomes versus getting the downgrade at running back, picking up Amari and Kraft? I think at this point, with how good Kenneth Walker looks, if you are selling Kenneth Walker, we just need to be getting overpaid. I mean, somebody needs to send you a ridiculous price to move off of Kenneth Walker at this point. And this seems like a fair deal, but not a ridiculous deal, if that makes sense. Now, going over to our next question from Potter Ben says, I got a problem with a week 12 bye. It's week 6. We're not worried about the week 12 bye. Your team's going to change a lot by then. What should we do? Everyone wants Cook. This is the best trade we can get. James Cook to Aaron Jones, downgrade, but we are picking up Brian Thomas. And I mean, I guess maybe ETN's still worth the roster spot. So I think you can go ahead. I think that you can make this deal. I'm definitely not doing it for ETN, but I'm effectively viewing it as like, hell, we're trading James Cook for Aaron Jones and Brian Thomas. Now, to be on record as well, I'm not doing this because of the bye week. I'm not making trades because we have too many players on a single week bye. Now, Quinn coming out with a trade question. This is Gibbs, Jaden Reed versus Amari, James Cook, Christian Watson. Gibbs over Cook, Reed over Amari. You're getting Watson and not getting nearly enough value. I think that you have the best player on the deal with Jahmyr Gibbs. And if we are selling Gibbs, I think you got to make them overpay for it a bit. Now, Swelly Gus says, would you rather stash Elijah Moore for a possible upside in a bad offense or Jordan Whittington? I'd probably rather have Whittington until 100%. You actually have Cooper Kupp back in this offense. Obviously, it looks like Kupp will be back in. But at the same time, what's the real upside in a Deshaun Watson offense? I know you have no Amari Cooper, but I don't see what the upside in a Watson offense is. Now, Sam coming out with a question. This is a trade where we send Barkley for Gibbs and an early to 2025 first. And a dynasty format, I'd rather have Gibbs over Barkley straight up. Getting the first round pick is an absolute no-brainer. So, yeah, we want to go Gibbs and the first. Now, Mother Flocka coming out with a trade question. 2-4, need to win now, and we have no RB2 this week. We have Moss, and the other team has Chuba. Do we try to send this? Jonathan Brooks to Chase Brown, 100%. I think that I would actually rather have Chase Brown over Jonathan Brooks rest of season. But especially on a 2-4 team, here is an absolute no-brainer to go get Chase Brown. Now, Breezy coming out. We have Jaden Reed, Terry McLaurin versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. We are going to go ahead. We will take St. Brown here relatively easily as well. I think with Aiden Hutchinson getting injured as well, there is an outside chance that you are going to be looking at I don't know, more passing attempts in the second half for Detroit in the future. Now, I love says thinking about this trade with the Shaheed injury. Running back room is JT, Kyron, Cook. Wide receiver room is Lamb, DK, Brian Thomas Jr. Cook to Walker, big time upgrade. Brian Thomas to Olave, lateral move / slight downgrade. 100%. I think you are getting the best player in the deal with Kenneth Walker. And I think if you can afford the lack of production in the short term, Chris Olave for Brian Thomas isn't the worst deal. Now, King of the Wing coming out says, my team is Burrow, Kamara, Montgomery, JT, Moss, Chase Brown, Lamb, Adams, Puka, Deontay, Wandale, Waddle, Ingram, and TJ Hawkinson. So Chase Brown to Josh Jacobs, big time upgrade. Wandale to Devonta Smith, big time upgrade. Kamara to Tyreek Hill, downgrade, but you may get to it back in the long term. And we get Kyler for free. Yeah, we go ahead and we make this move. Obviously, at this point, we look to turn around and try to flip Kyler for a little bit more if possible. So I think we go with the Tyreek, Josh Jacobs, Davante Smith side of this. Like, you're giving up probably the best player, but I think you're getting the second, third, and fourth best players in the deal. Now, let me refresh this and see if we have any more start-sit questions or trade questions coming in. Then we can get back to the roster reviews. Okay, good. We have a bunch of roster reviews that we can look at. So real quick, I definitely want to remind you, if you wanted to get a guaranteed question answered in any one of these streams, just go over to flockfantasy.com. You can hit that button in the top right corner that says expert advice, or you can go through the link in the live chat that says ask a question here. And if you do that, you can ask a team review, trade question, start sit question, or a super message. If you wanted a team review, I would highly recommend actually taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, however, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you'll be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, you're going to be getting hooked up with a free Bo Nix pick, more than less than half a total yard for tonight's game as well. And you'll be getting that free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single night. Just make sure that you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to accredit you with that free team review voucher. But let's move this back over to what we have with this question here. Coming out from XX Extension. This is one of those free Underdog team reviews. This is Disciple Gang. This is by far and away the best team in this league. If you're looking at the league analyzer, it is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format where the wide receiver depth doesn't matter. And primarily the only thing that is going to move the needle is upside, upside, upside. And any chance you get to sell a wide receiver depth piece and go get an upgrade inside the starting lineup is something that we are wanting to do. Also, we are wanting to typically roster more running backs than receivers in a league like this. Now, obviously, with all that being said, I mean, we are in a very comfortable spot with this team. I mean, we are sitting with unbelievable running back production. We'll get to that in a second, though, but let's first focus in on what you have with quarterback, where at QB, we are currently sitting with Kyler Murray, 12-team format. I do think that Kyler is still a mid QB1. Is he an absolute stud, elite option that we are going to be able to rely upon every single week? Maybe not so much. I don't think he's elite, but you do have the rushing production, which we can be excited about, of course. Going over to what we have at running back, we have the best running back room in this league and the best running back room by far. We have 3 RB1s rest of season, 3 top 10 guys with Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, and Bijan Robinson. Absolutely love this running back room. And I will say the first thing I am looking to do is sell Jordan Mason. You are potentially not even starting Jordan Mason this week. Obviously, Jordan Mason's value kind of has that expiration where the second McCaffrey is back in. Then at that point, you should expect that Jordan Mason is a less exciting option in this offense. So I would look to package Jordan Mason and Kyler Murray to try to get to an elite QB if possible. Like if we can go Jordan Mason and Kyler to get to Jalen Hurts, where this team's RB3 is Jalen Warren, I'd really like to do that. This team has the Aaron Jones injury. They may be starting Najee Harris and Bucky Irving. So if you can go Kyler Murray and Jordan Mason to get to Lamar Jackson, I think that'd be an absolute no-brainer for your roster as well. But we for sure want to be selling Jordan Mason. I mean, another way that you can go about it if you love Kyler is you can look to sell Jordan Mason and Tank Dell to go get an absolute stud wide receiver. I mean, we even have the running back depth piece in Javonte Williams. We have the premium handcuff back with Blake Corum. I know that typically in this kind of format, we are wanting to go through and we are wanting to optimize for running backs down there at the bottom end of this team. But I'll say this is a very unique situation in that we are so strong at running back that I think I would even prefer going through and looking at the waiver wire. I would rather have somebody like Roma Dunze. Like, I think I drop possibly Blake Corum, pick up Roma Dunce, someone that we think has a lot of upside rest of season here. David Njoku versus Cole Kmet. I'm fine if you want to hold on to Njoku over Kmet. Definitely something that you can think about, though. Where we have the elite tight end with Bowers, we don't necessarily need a tight end for this week. I think maybe Kmet gives you a little more long-term upside. But no matter what we are wanting to do is we are wanting to sell Jordan Mason with either Tank Dell to get the best wide receiver we can, or with Kyler Murray to go get somebody like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts. And then also, we probably want to drop Blake Corum to pick up Roma Dunce as a wide receiver with a ton of upside here long-term. If you expect that the rookie receiver continues to get better, as well as what you have with the number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams. But I really do appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my friend. But let's move this over to our next question. This next one coming out from Common Sense with a massive dono. Thank you so much, my friend, for being a longtime member of the flock. Let me go ahead and I'm going to credit you with a free trade question as well. So if you have any trade questions specifically with this team, you can go ahead and send them whenever you want. It doesn't even have to be with this team if you have a trade question with another team. And also, it doesn't expire, so you can just save it for whenever you ever want to ask a trade question. It will be free if you send it over to me. But anyway, we're getting Davante Adams and James Cook for David Montgomery and Jacoby Myers. Not worried about the Week 12 bye. How do I bury this league? I'm telling you right now, we are already in a really good spot where we are the second team in this league analyzer. Definitely looking at team 1. They have the strongest roster. It may be a little bit tough to go up against them. But nonetheless, looking at the deal where we are trading the Montgomery and Myers for Adams and James Cook, it's an absolute no-brainer. Montgomery to James Cook is a slight downgrade with this being a full PPR format. Davante Adams for Jacoby Myers is a massive upgrade. Going over to running back, we also have Barkley and Breece Hall. So this is a ridiculous team in general. But yeah, looking at what we have here at quarterback, we have Allen. Obviously, Allen gets a bump up here as well, considering the trade with Amari Cooper. I think you just have more consistent passing volume going into the future. Going over to the running back room, we are sitting with 2 elite RBs with the combo of Saquon Barkley as well as Breece Hall. 2 running backs that we can start every single week, regardless of matchup. Obviously, no hesitation whatsoever in saying that. We have David Montgomery. We just traded for James Cook, so we have very solid RB3 as well. We have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt as quality depth pieces. So it's a 10-team league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So typically, I don't really care much about wide receiver depth. However, if you're looking at the running back depth that we have on this team, where Nick Chubb is potentially our RB4, Kareem Hunt is potentially our RB5, I think I'd be very much interested in going through and seeing if you could possibly trade like Kareem Hunt and a 2-for-1 deal with somebody like Tank Dell to go get an upgrade at wide receiver, especially knowing that there are solid options on the waiver wire here. I think that would be very interesting when we have all the running back production in the world, and I'm sure we can find somebody in our league that needs a little bit of additional depth. Going over to wide receiver, we have Wilson and Davante Adams, so we are all in on this offense with Rodgers. So obviously, if Rodgers comes out slinging, if Rodgers looks great, then we should be in a pretty good spot. If Rodgers is not in the top half of passing volume, then it will be a lot tougher, but still. And then looking at Christian Watson and Jacoby Myers, for me personally, I think you go ahead and you cut Myers, you pick up Roma Dunze here. For sure, I think we see a little bit more upside rest of season with Rome than you see a Myers based off the offense and the talent profiles of both receivers, and Myers is banged up as well. In terms of moving on from Christian Watson, Wan'Dale Robinson versus Christian Watson could be an appealing thing to look at. Definitely not something that we have to swap around, though. Going over to tight end, we have Dalton Kincaid and Cole Kmet. So we have Kincaid to start right now, Kmet for the long term. I would for sure, I don't know if we were actually rostering Taysom Hill still, but I'd for sure drop Taysom Hill. And maybe you just drop Taysom and you pick up Roma Dunze that way. But yeah, it's a phenomenal team. I love the Davante Adams trade. I think the move at this point is going to be to go through. And actually, yeah, we were trading away Jacoby Myers in that Adams deal. So we don't need to have Myers. So I would drop Taysom. I'd pick up Rome. I would try to trade Kareem and Tank Dell to go get the best wide receiver we possibly can, because the running back depth that we have is absolutely absurd. And I think that we could find somebody in our league that actually needs the depth where we don't, and we could squeeze a little bit of value out of them. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way here. But let me move this over and let me actually get to, I think we had a start sit question come in. And this question is from Chief Reefer, always out here. Running back, we are going to be looking at this week, Ty Chandler, Tyler Algier. If Aaron Jones misses, we go Ty Chandler. If Aaron Jones plays, we are going to go ahead. We are going to take Tyler Algier. And then for the flex spot, I think it's probably a really easy situation. Go with Deontay Johnson in what should be a super high scoring environment here in Carolina. Now, Marshall coming out with a start sit question. Here at running back, we're going to go ahead and we will play James Cook. Did get in a full practice today. We're going to go T. Higgins at wide receiver. And then for the flex, if Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like he is going to be guaranteed good to go for Monday night, you go Harrison. And if not, we will go with Kareem Hunt. But plan A is Harrison. We're just going to have to monitor it. Harrison did get in a practice today, so obviously that is good news. And LPC Cobra coming out with a trade question. This is Devonta Smith versus CJ Stroud. Stroud with a limited rushing upside. I think that you're maybe better off just holding on to Smith and potentially actually just streaming the quarterback position if need be, to be honest. But I think that should be it in terms of what we have for the questions in this stream. I see that there are a couple team reviews that we still need to get to. These will be the first ones that we look at tomorrow. And of course, too, you don't even have to come out to the live stream tomorrow, because whenever you ask a question on the site, as soon as I answer it in a live stream, it's going to be sent to you through the site with a custom link that takes you to the exact time where I answered your question in that live stream. If you ever wanted to get into a question, you get that expert advice button in the top right corner. You can get in a team review, trade question, start sit question, super message, literally whenever. It doesn't have to be when we are live streaming, since the second that we answer it, it will get sent to you through the site. You don't even have to come to the live streams if you don't want to see your question answered. And also, I do want to reiterate, if you wanted that team review, or if you just wanted to have some fun rooting for something with the game tonight, you can head over to Underdog Fantasy. And if you go over to Underdog and use promo code FLOCK, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you'll be getting that free Bo Nix pick, less than half a total yard for tonight's game. And on top of that, you'll be getting a free team review in the live stream that we're doing every single night. So you can find that link in the live chat, of course. And just make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as the account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to know who we should accredit with that free team review. But thank you again. I really appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out in the stream. And I will be live streaming, of course, after the game, talking about everything that happens, even though probably be very boring.